hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of Return to Videotech. I'm Keith, and with me again is my buddy Matt. How's it going, dude?
Good man, getting a little different angle of me every episode now. It's a whole event. I did yoga this morning. Already completely ruined my zen by when I tried to. I at your recommendation, I bought an arm for the mic. When I tried to unbox it, it didn't seem like there would be anything heavy in there, but somehow the heaviest piece fell out and landed on my foot, and I was just like screaming the F word, probably like waking up the neighborhood.
Well, I like your shirt. You look like you're prepared for, some handiwork.
Thanks. Yeah, I know. There's some destroyed footage of a promo that you tried to cut for the show where you talked about my hobbies and one of them being expensive clothes.
We can bring it back, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that an expensive shirt? It looks expensive.
By the way, all the time you spend on things and you just wouldn't cut together that thing that I wanted of the Pizza and Go reference from the first episode.
Oh,
That teaser.
well, to be fair, David Lynch had just passed, and I felt
That's
like
true.
it would make more sense to be, a little more serious.
That's true. There was a lot to do and a lot to get into. One thing that I did want to hit on, because I've been thinking about it as a rule for the show, and you can follow whatever you want, but this is what I was thinking on the spoiler front. If it's something new, we won't spoil it. But if it's a movie that's like been around and in the zeitgeist for years and years, it's fair game to talk about. That's what I think the fair rule will be.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good rule. Especially I'm glad we didn't spoil Anora for people
Right.
because that movie's
Agreed.
brand new and it's amazing and I want people to watch it. So
Yeah. Totally. So what have you been up to in the time since episode 2?
well, I did get this really cool physical release of Rumpelstiltskin.
Now I am familiar with the legend of Rumpelstiltskin, but I was not aware of any film. I mean, I guess I probably was sure that existed, but I've not seen the cinematic version of any Rumpelstiltskin story.
Well, you're missing out. You need to watch this one. It's kind of in the vein of stuff like Leprechaun. It's just this real goofy, over the top. I wouldn't even say it's a horror movie. It's really just a horror comedy. It's about this little goblin-looking dude. He goes around. He grants your wish. It's kind of like a Gremlin situation where this lady buys this trinket, and this lady reluctantly sells it to her, and she makes a wish, and then this little gremlin guy, Rumpelstiltskin, shows up.
Yeah.
He'll grant a wish for you, but in return he steals your baby.
It's definitely sounding good. Yeah, it's got my interest captured.
Yeah. I had fun
So
with it.
you bought it and watched it then, or did you?
Yeah,
had you previously?
I was so excited because that's one of those movies that I saw trailers for it when I was a kid. I remember seeing trailers for it probably on the Sci-Fi Channel or something.
Wow.
And I remember seeing the cover art for it at the video store before. But I never watched it.
Yeah.
I never watched it because honestly, it came out in '95, I think. And
Did you see it at VideoTech by any chance?
Probably. I probably did see it there, but the cover makes it look really scary.
I mean, what did we really have? I mean, there was VideoTech, there was the video rental section of Wegmans. Was there one in Corning proper? I feel like there
was
probably
one on Market Street for a little
Okay.
while. I can't remember the name of that, but
Did you go to it as a kid though, or?
I did, yeah.
Okay. See, I was pure VideoTech because that was right in my backyard.
I rented a lot of Jackie Chan movies there as a kid.
Yes, I went
Rumble
through
in the
a little.
Bronx.
Yes, I also went through that era.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember. There's something. One of them is something Operation Condor or something.
Okay.
I'll have to look at it later. I do.
3 Days
I did
of the Condor?
It's one of the Jackie Chan ones.
Oh, never mind. That 3 Days of the Condor does not have Jackie Chan.
No, sorry. Yeah, not that. I was not listening to the full title that you said. That if I had knew that, I would have been like, no. I swear though, filibuster for a second because now I feel like I need.
I can talk about the company that put out Rumpelstiltskin because it's pretty cool. I don't know the guy's name, but I think he's an offshoot. He used to work at Vinegar Syndrome, acquiring titles.
Oh, cool.
I watched this interview with
So do they take their time with shipping then, or
dude, actually, the Rumpelstiltskin, I pre-ordered that like as soon as they went up because a lot of people were
Yeah.
talking about it, and I was pretty excited for it. Um, but it didn't take that long considering like they're a very brand new company. I think it's just like two or three people. I could be wrong about that, but there was a cool interview with the owner on Planet CHH's YouTube channel, um, where they just kind of talked about him starting the company, and it's pretty cool. They also put out Frogman, which I also have. I haven't opened it yet, but
Excellent. Yes, definitely looks like a fun ride.
found footage movie about a dude um, who comes across the Frogman in the
I
woods.
guess
Yeah,
it kind of sounds like that Troll Hunter movie.
it's been a while since I've seen that, but kind
Well,
of,
the idea
yeah.
is the same though. I mean, it's found footage of people actually like
Yeah, they're like
fighting a
documentary
giant troll.
filmmakers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
By the way, the Jackie Chan movie I was referencing is called Armor of God 2: Operation Condor. Uh,
Okay.
never saw Armor of God 1, but proudly rented Armor of God 2.
I don't think I've seen either of those. I would rent um, Rumble in the Bronx like repeatedly though.
Yeah.
My mom
Yeah,
would be
that
like, why do you want this again? You've seen it like 10 times."
I mean that was the fun. I
Yeah,
mean, why watch something else when you can watch the same thing over and over?
exactly. Exactly.
And I don't really have it in my life anymore, but there was a time where it's certainly when you were hanging out with me where I would just watch the same movie like every night for like a summer.
Oh yeah.
We definitely had a run with Clerks 2, I think, before
Yeah.
you left, where I just would put that on like every single night.
So what
So
have you gone to the theater, seen anything cool or picked anything cool up
well,
recently?
I did. I'm still trying to round out my 2024 year end list. So I did see The Brutalist, all the 4 hour experience with an intermission. I think the last movie that I saw with an intermission was Zach and Belle and I went and saw Hateful Eight like on Christmas, like the road show experience, and they did um, an intermission for that. But it was definitely long. I mean, as expected, it's dark, but it wasn't as dark as I was expecting through most of it. And then it kind of takes a further leap into darkness. It's sort of like this distorted American dream story that's kind of really through the perspective of not the main character, but you may not really realize that until the end. Um, which I won't go any further on that, but I think if you see it, you'll get it. It's just this masterful piece of craftsmanship from the second that it opens up with the like presented in VistaVision. You're like, oh hell yeah! Like it's one of the things that you would draw comparisons to quickly is There Will Be Blood. I wouldn't say like thematically they're like super similar. Like I don't think they're going for the same thing, but it is just like this big production. It's almost like this Men Who Made America feel to like the industrialness of the work that's happening throughout the movie. Of course, There Will Be Blood is about oil, and this is an architect, but he is certainly making his way through some of the dirty jobs of America that were happening back in that time period. But it's unbelievable. I still have Anora as my number one for the year, but this is probably number two.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of good things about it. And
Do you
funny
know who
enough,
directed it?
no, who did?
Do you know? I think his name is Brady Corbett, but you would know him as the other bad guy from the American version of Funny Games. That's not Michael Pitt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
That
that's
dude
the guy.
directed
And I
it?
think he only directed one other feature before this, Vox Lux, which is like a movie about a pop star or something with Natalie Portman that I tried to watch on a plane at one point, but I didn't make it very far into. And I do want to go back and revisit that. But how weird is that? That's yeah, Brady Corbett's his name.
That's wild. I am a fan of that American remake.
Yeah, I know.
Funny
I
Games.
I think I think I first saw it with you because and you had seen the original too, which I have since seen, but at the time I just saw the American one. I do have the Criterion of the original now. I think still in shrink wrap, but I have seen it before.
That's
Um,
wild. I didn't know that. I do really want to see this movie though, just because I've heard it's, up there in the runnings for Best Picture.
it's
But
just an experience. You know what I mean? It's one
yeah.
of those ones that's like every few years there's just one of these movies that I feel like you have to go do the full experience for. I mean, it's tough and it's asking a lot. You know, last year's was probably Killers of the Flower Moon, but I think this year's was the brutalist. If you can, for people like you and me who just love going to the movies, I don't think it's that much of a hardship. I do think that it's a lot to ask to have people sit through a 3.5 hour plus experience, but I never felt like this dragged. I'll say that.
Yeah, the barrier for me is definitely not, being how long it is.
Well,
Well, I
yeah,
guess it is in a way. It's really just, having a new kid. It's hard to get away for 4 hours.
that is tough. Yeah,
Um, but I did go see, before we get into the actual show here, I did want to ask you, have you ever seen Pink Flamingos?
I have not. I've actually seen I very little of John Waters' works.
Okay, this is the only John Waters movie that I've seen, but
Okay, so
I don't know if you saw my post on Instagram, but I went
I
to see
did.
it. I went to see it on Friday at this little like art house theater
Uh
in
huh.
like downtown, with two of my buddies that I used to work with. Dude, it was an experience. It's an insane movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I take it like the crowd is super into it.
Yeah, the crowd was all big. I mean, I guess I assumed that they're all John Waters fans, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the crowd was very active. Everybody was laughing at like the most ridiculous stuff. It was like, and like recently watching a bunch or rewatching a bunch of David Lynch movies, I was like, this John Waters movie actually almost kind of surpasses it in absurdity and craziness. Like it's hard to explain. It's an experience though.
I have seen some of their works tied together at times,
Yeah,
in discussions. I would love to dive into his stuff at some point. I guess it's on the list of things to do, which is much longer than you'd expect. With this movie shit, it really does just go on and on. Like I'll watch one movie from a director and I'm like, wow, I need to go watch the rest of his stuff. Like I still have seen,
yeah.
like, let me say it like this: there is still so much left unseen for me.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel the same way, man. I sometimes I feel like I know a lot about movies and then I'm like, wait, actually there's so much that I have no idea about.
I know, and I've more recently, over the past, I don't know, 5 years or so now, like Rocky Horror Picture Show has become one of those movies for me that's like an every year watch. But I've never done the whole experience where, have you ever gone to a theater for that? Those people are like super into it, and it's like a whole experience
Yeah.
doing that. And actually, here in Pittsburgh is one of the most famous ones because if you've ever seen like Perks of Being a Wallflower, that is based off a theater that was local to Pittsburgh, and they did a big event there every year. But that I kind of want to do that at one point, but there's sort of I feel like I'm not part of the club thing.
Yeah. Luckily I was with two dudes who were very into it as well. Even though I don't think either of them had seen any John Waters movies either.
Oh, okay,
I will say though, there is a lot of disgusting stuff in there.
I'm
It
sure. Yeah,
it's more absurdist. Like if you
yeah.
think that stuff that's just like absolutely crazy is funny, then you'd be into it. But there's some stuff that was really gross. Yeah, I'll just say that.
I've always been impressed with his commitment to keeping the little like single line stash
Yeah.
going, like just to curate that every day. Like what a commitment.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, well, should we get into the show?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. Do you want to get into your blind buy first? Or in shrink wrap, whichever it is?
Yes, I do. I would like to get into it first. So let me find it here from my pile from my stack. As I showed off last week, I picked Closed Circuit, not knowing much about it. Again, Italian. I sort of was expecting it to be like grindhousey. It was a little less grindhousey than I expected. Um, in the description, it says, at the local cinema, an audience watches a spaghetti western matinee. Sounds great. During the film's on screen climactic duel, a bullet is fired into a patron. With no leads in a theater full of suspects, police investigators lock the doors, put everyone back in their seats, and run the movie again. So it becomes this like whodunit type situation. It's actually more Knives Out, Agatha Christie-esque than I was expecting because it is just like this group of people in the theater and these people trying to investigate what happened. As the movie goes on, it becomes more clear that there's something more supernatural at play, and it's not really someone in the theater killing people. Um, this is probably a version of my expectations not aligning with reality, which is unfair to movies a lot of times, but I will say it happens a lot with me where I'm like, oh, this isn't really what I was expecting, and that like, kind of puts me on my heels a little bit, which is not really fair to the first viewing of a movie because it's not the movie's fault, but it does play into how I take movies in, which a lot of times on Letterboxd and stuff, my score will change over times with subsequent viewings, and I'm just comfortable with that at this point because movies either have more or less to give as time goes on and you take more into it. I would say for my first viewing of this, I'm probably like a 3 star. Like it was fun, but I'll probably revisit it at some point. Probably won't be in the near future.
Yeah, I'll say anything with like a movie theater or a drive-in theater setting, I'm always like, I'll watch it.
Yeah. Well, I
um,
thought this would be a good companion piece with the homework I assigned to you, which of course we'll get into
I was gonna
later.
say, yeah.
But it was less. This was like less grindhousey than that.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, and I
Surprising
don't
though,
know.
because it's a Severin title you said, right?
Yeah,
They do a
yeah.
lot of grindhousey stuff, I think.
Well, I guess people would probably debate me on that. Like, what does grindhouse mean? This was a made-for-TV movie originally,
Okay.
so it definitely wasn't like a true grindhouse movie that was made for like a grindhouse drive-in theater or anything. Um, which I've ended up with a few made-for-TV movies in my collection of just things that have been put out over the years. They're usually blind buys. Um,
Dude,
I don't
quick
really.
tangent on that. Have you
Yeah.
seen Someone's Watching Me, the John Carpenter? I think that's what it's called.
I
I
don't
have it on
think
Scream
so.
Factory. Hold on, let
I
me.
don't think so. I'm gonna have to make a little note to myself in my little Subaru Detectives notebook here. Someone's watching me. You're saying is
Yeah,
the name of it as you
this is
rush
a
across the room.
John. Yeah, it's a John Carpenter made for TV movie that I hadn't seen until this last October, and it's really good.
Okay, cool. I will add that to my watch list. Someone's watching me. John Carpenter. So yeah, I would overall on closed circuit. Like I said, out of the gate, I'm probably a 3 star. I think there's a little bit more to give. It actually reminded me. There's an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark that we did for Greatest Moments where it's like a Nosferatu movie that's playing and Nosferatu like comes out of the screen. There's something very similar with this and the spaghetti western movie is sort of going on. So that was sort of a weird tie-in, but it did remind me of that. Um, so yeah, not too much for me to say about it at this point, other than I was lukewarm to liking it.
Okay, cool, cool. Um, Maybe I'll watch it sometime. I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah,
sound like it's a high recommend, but
you may like it more than me though.
okay. I'll keep it in the back of my
Yeah.
mind. If I'm ever shopping in on Severin's website and it's on sale or something.
Let me say it like this: if you were over at my house and you were like, pick a movie for us to watch, this would probably be on the list of ones that I would pick, like with you in mind.
Okay.
I might not be like, hey, you're gonna love this, but I'm interested in watching it with you, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. Maybe we'll watch it together sometime.
yeah. I'll swing
Next
through.
time I'm in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Okay, should we get into mine then?
yeah, please.
All right. So my blind buy / in the shrink wrap was Wild at Heart.
Yeah, I have the same one. I should have grabbed it too, so I could show mine off because it's got a slip cover.
Yeah. I noticed when we were talking about it in the last episode, you called it a
Yes, which
sleeve.
I brought up last episode too. No biggie,
No,
sorry.
no biggie.
Yeah,
Dude, for collectors, slipcovers are like a big deal for some people. Me, I
I
don't
know.
really care that much. Like some
No,
of
I
them are
know.
cool, but
When Zach and I used to go around to the local exchanges at buying Blu-rays, that was always like a differentiator. Like if you only somewhat liked a movie, but you saw a version of it that came in a slipcover, we'd be like, "Oh, in a sleeve, I'm getting it." So stupid.
yeah, yeah. I sent you a link for that guy on YouTube who does like parody videos, right? His
Oh yeah,
name's Slipcover Steve.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
he's a very controversial character on YouTube, but I think he's hilarious. He 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 puts all of his slip covers behind him in his videos. Like he takes the movies out and just puts the slip covers to show them off. Like like his whole bit is he like doesn't care about the movies. He just like wants the slip covers because they're gonna like appreciate and value. I think it's
I don't
hilarious.
know. Look. I sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't care. With Kino, I kind of like the slipcover just because they're so bare bones
Hmm.
with a lot of their stuff. But I don't know. I don't get crazy about it. Sometimes it's nice to have. If it's a movie I really want, I don't give a shit. I'll take whatever version they got.
Yeah. Sometimes
So
there's
how do
like
you like
really
Wild at Heart?
cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask how you liked Wild at Heart.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, enough of that.
We can talk about
So
slipcovers anytime.
Wild at Heart, yeah, I before we started the show, I think I was telling you that I think this might actually be my new favorite David Lynch movie.
I could
Um,
see that fitting with you. It's up there for me too.
I think a big part of that is I found a lot of the dialogue and stuff to be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like it's just super absurd. Um, and yeah, I think the story is a little bit easier to follow than some of his other movies. It's not as dark, or I mean, there's definitely dark
Yeah.
moments, but and you had
I
brought
think
up
some people would argue with you to say that it's not dark.
maybe my sense of humor is just ultra
Yeah.
dark and like I find that stuff funny, but
Well, that's true. A lot of the violence is not to recycle a word, but a lot of the violence is kind of like grindhousey.
yeah. So specifically, I watched this movie
Yeah.
twice. I had never seen it before. I watched it once like a week and a half ago, and then I
Yep.
was like, I don't know if I fully understood it, so I was like, was remembering correctly like how the story goes. So I was like, I'm gonna watch it again. So I rewatched it again this morning, and when it gets to the robbery scene with Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe's
Exactly.
character,
Yep.
and they have like the socks over their head or whatever, and the way Willem Dafoe dies is so insane.
Yes.
Chris, my wife, was sitting on the floor next to me folding laundry as we were watching this, and she literally like audibly gasped and was like, "Oh my god!" I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I feel
mean,
like we can we spoil this one because it's
yes, for sure. Yes.
he gets shot
Yeah. I
like
think you already
six
did, by the
times
way.
by this police officer, and then he falls on his shotgun and blows his own head off. It's wild. It's crazy.
Crime gone wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
there's a ton of shit in it though that is like, unsettling for sure. Like,
yeah,
um,
you brought up in the last episode how David Lynch does a lot of stuff with like head trauma stuff.
yeah.
The car accident scene was
Yep.
kind of
Oh,
wild.
right.
Is that actress, was she in Twin
Twin
Peaks? Because I haven't.
Peaks. Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize
Sherilyn
her
Fenn.
from. Okay, yeah, I recognize her from that. I did find that car accident scene kind of unsettling.
Well, there are some kind of swings in tone in the movie, and that one is like really serious.
Yeah. The
Whereas like
other
a lot of the ones feel kind of goofy.
Yeah, the one that I would say was probably the most unsettling on my first watch, and then I guess it was still unsettling the second watch was when Willem Dafoe's character Bobby, I think his name is, he
Yes.
enters Lula and Sailor's room that they're
Hotel
staying
room.
in,
Yeah.
and he doesn't actually I mean he kind of sexually assaults her, I guess.
I'd say it counts. Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
would
guess
say.
it counts, even
Yeah.
though yeah,
It is. It's just
that
not the full. Yeah.
it's not like the full thing, but it is like horrible
Right.
what
I agree. That part
happens.
is like really tough to watch.
Yeah. And then his his teeth the whole time too are just like
Yeah.
disgusting. Chris, another funny thing, we need to get Chris like on a commentary or something if we ever do like a full movie commentary because she just like
Yes.
blurts out the funniest stuff. She's just like, I think it was in that scene, and she just goes, "Has this guy ever brushed his teeth before?"
It is like a movie of characters, that's for sure. It's taking place in this world of
Mhm.
this underground hitman like circuit or something. Like they all know each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so this might come up later when we talk about Brick a little bit, but there is
Yeah.
one character in this movie that has like one of her legs is shorter than the other one,
Yeah.
and that's like the pin
Right.
in Brick has the same thing, and
That's true. I didn't think about that.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, I really like that in movies, like when characters have like distinct physical traits that kind of set them apart from other characters, like.
Absolutely.
um it doesn't even always have to be like something physically wrong with them or whatever, like in Pulp Fiction, the band-aid on the back of Marcellus's neck or whatever, like stuff like that. I don't know why, I just thought
Yeah.
of stuff like
It's
that.
just like character differentiators that bring some uniqueness to them.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just a random thought that I had when I was watching it.
I
I just
enjoyed
thought
it.
that was cool.
Yeah. More random thoughts, please.
um,
What did you rate it?
I don't think I did. I log it. I don't think I logged it yet. But if I didn't, I would probably give it like 4 stars.
Yeah, I think I'm 4.5, but
Yeah.
it was probably one that I was 4 stars at one point and then 4.5. I actually think Brick, when I first logged it, was 4. Then the next viewing was 4.5. Then the next viewing was 5. So there's, sometimes there's a
Gets
progression as
better.
we
Yeah.
work through it.
Well,
Yeah.
with Brick, that's super understandable because it's hard to understand the first time you watch it.
Yeah, once we get into it, I'll tell you a little bit of my history, because it was not something that I like really got into the first time I ever gave it a shot.
Yeah.
So, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But anything else you'd like to say about Wild at Heart?
I guess the only other thing is after watching this, it really made me want to go back and watch that documentary that you brought up last time, the Lynch Oz thing, because
I would
this
really
one is
recommend it.
it's chock full of the Wizard of Oz stuff. Like,
Yeah, for sure. That is like the most blatant.
yeah.
I mean, to the
At the
point
very
that like
end, like we're spoiling it,
Glenda,
but Glenda
yeah,
shows up. Dude, that was like my favorite quote. I had to write this down just because I thought it was hilarious. Glenda, she comes down after he gets knocked out by that like gang or whatever, and Glenda
yeah.
comes down, the good witch. She's like, Lula loves you, and Sailor just goes, but I'm a robber and a manslaughterer, and I haven't had any parental guidance. It's just like it's like the goofiest thing to say. I don't know. I love that.
I know it's such a swirl of like weird, hilarious, disturbing, super serious at moments. Like it is
Mhm.
all over the place, but I think it all is swirled together in this way that works if you can get past it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to most people. You know what I mean? Like you're someone I would
Yeah.
recommend it to, but like I wouldn't recommend it to my parents.
Not for like a normie, but if you're into like weird absurdist stuff, I would say
Yeah.
give it a watch maybe.
Okay, so we should tease our blind buy still in shrink wraps for next week, which I have mine here, which just came in a recent Kino Lorber haul. I had been taking some time off of buying movies, but when I got to dry January this year, which is now over, hallelujah, I started buying movies again just to, distract myself from the horrors of the world. So every once in a while, I just buy a movie that I'm like, I like the name or I like the cover or I like the artwork that they did. Yes, I'm one of those people. I do it. That's why we have this segment on the show. This is Miracle Mile. I don't know if you can get a good look there, which is 1988. Looks like takes place in Los Angeles. Anthony Edwards is in it. Don't really recognize a lot of the other names, but it's got a Tangerine Dream score, which is always interest raising, I would say. And I don't really know how it's going to be, but this is the type of artwork that I see, and I'm like, yes, I need to own that.
Okay, nice.
How's
I
that
didn't
for you?
grab I didn't grab the one that I was gonna do, so give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I just thought of this on the fly because I actually didn't pick one out yet, but I think I'm gonna do Demons 2.
Oh, Demons 2. Here we go.
Yeah. So I have seen Demons 1, but it was a
Wait,
while
I
ago.
saw
So
Dario Argento's name on it. Did he actually direct it, or is this like a no presents? Okay.
who directed these? I don't actually know. It might be Dario Argento.
I don't think so. Normally, when it says somebody presents, that doesn't mean that
Oh,
they
by
directed it.
Lamberto Bava, another
Okay.
Italian director.
Part of the, I'm assuming part of the Dario Argento crew.
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I watched Demons. I don't know, a few months back, and I liked it a lot. So I asked Chris. Well, I make this list on Amazon of like movies that I want to buy.
Oh yeah.
And when Chris was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I was just like, "Just pick something from this."
Oh, good for you, man. I
And
just write mine in a watch list.
she got me both of them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I write mine in a I write mine in a notepad on my phone,
yeah.
and then I also add them to my watch list and letterbox. But I feel like the Amazon wish list is the way to go.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially if you're gonna be like, "Hey, Linz,
Yeah,
my birthday's coming up."
I know. Well, like a lot of the times I'll be like, hey, I want this and this, and it'll be stuff that's like for pre-order on like Diabolic DVD.
Oh yeah,
She's had to deal with some customer service on some of these websites, not Diabolic DVD,
Mhm.
but and she's like not thrilled. She's just like, I'm like, listen, these are very small operations, okay? Like,
They are, yeah.
you're probably talking to the guy who owns it and is also like shipping all this stuff out. So
Do you follow Orbit DVD on Instagram? Because that
I
dude
don't.
he goes live and will just talk to people. Like you can ask him questions and stuff. He's pretty cool. I can't think of
Orbit?
his name, but or for Orbit DVD,
Yeah.
yeah, he'll go
I've been
live and
there.
they're what's up?
Do you know I've been there? I think I sent you a picture when I was there.
Oh,
It's in
really?
Asheville. Yeah.
Ah, yeah. Sorry, I don't remember.
I was just there like last summer, and I think I texted you a picture of it because I was like at
Oh,
Orbit DVD.
honestly, I might not have even known what they like who they were at that point.
Okay. Well, now retroactively, you think that was a cool moment.
I do
Yeah.
retroactively. Yes, think that's amazing.
All right. So we'll look forward to Demons 2 next
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Very good.
Okay, Matt, it's time to talk about the movies that we are in the mood for. So, what were you in the mood for this week?
I was in the mood for something that I'm basically always in the mood for, which is X-Files and any version of X-Files, but specifically for me, it was X-Files, Fight the Future. Um, I can't remember what year in the 90s this was. It was maybe 98. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it was 98. So I watched X-Files, the TV show, the TV series as a kid sporadically. I've made several attempts to watch the entire series, have never made it through all the way. There's just way too many episodes. I can't. I mean, it's during that time when most of the TV seasons were like 22 or 24 episodes in a season. It was an hour-long show, obviously with commercials, so like 40 minutes or whatever for the episodes, but I do love it. I mean, maybe some X-Files people would be like, "That's crazy. How can you say you love it but you've never made it all the way through?" Give me a break, people. All right. I mean, it's a lot of freaking content and I'm into other stuff. Like, so I think there's two kind of schools of X-Files fans. One is you're into the X-Files mythology storyline where it's mostly about Mulder and his past, and that takes you through the story. And then the other episodes are like the monsters of the week, where it's just not really moving the Mulder storyline forward. It's just a procedural around, hey, there's a zombie living in the woods or whatever, and we need to go investigate it. And I think the X-Files people are kind of split. I'm more on the, I like both. I'm more on the side of the mythology and driving the storyline forward. I do understand people that are kind of annoyed with it because there's so many episodes that like it just drags on and they keep going back to the well with the same thing of like how this movie ends, where it's like you see an alien spaceship and of course Scully is just happens to be knocked out when it happens. Like they go back to the well with that several times throughout the series. Like if Scully could just stay conscious in a big moment at any point, then she would be like, "Oh yeah, Mulder, you're right. Aliens do exist." But you know, like it is a lot of repeatability because there's just so many episodes. But um, in some ways, X Files feels derivative of a few things like Twin Peaks. It's FBI agents investigating supernatural things, which is something out of Twin Peaks. JFK, certainly. Martin Landau in this movie is basically doing like a character like Donald Sutherland in JFK, where he's almost doing the affectations with his voice and everything in a similar way, where he's giving little tips. Why would that be that way? Why would that be that way that day? Like, kind of tipping Mulder off to things, and even sort of a little bit Silence of the Lambsy, I would say. But I think it totally works for an idea for a show. Much like I feel like our main topic, Brick, this week, took two things and put them together and just made it like this great thing that really works. I think the same thing with X Files. Like they took a couple things, put it together, and it became its complete own thing that really works. And I really enjoy just revisiting this movie because it's the cinematic version of what I like about the show. It leaves you really not much further forward than you would have been otherwise, but I just enjoy spending time in this world. There's something to seeing TV characters that you know and like on the big screen or the big screen version. Even if you're not seeing it in the theater, the production value just looks different. I think my first experience of that was the 1996 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, where all of a sudden I'm seeing like all of my friends on the big screen. It's just a different experience, you know. Like, wow, Kimberly and Tommy, how cool are that was the early days experience of that. But I will also say that I just bought this Blu-ray to watch for the show. It's been on my list to buy for a while. I was wondering if, I don't know, maybe they'd eventually do like a 4K release and I would just wait for that. But it was a good excuse to just buy this. Um, Directed by Rob Bowman, which this will come to find out be a Rob Bowman spotlight segment of its own this week, which we'll get to in a minute. But I think he directed a lot of episodes of the show, and I think this is as good as you can ask for. And I just want to say one more thing about the Blu-ray. In the early days of me seeing Blu-ray ads, like when you'd go into a Best Buy and they'd be like showing clips from movies, and it's like, look how good this looks. I want to say that X-Files Fight the Future was one that they would show a lot, and I just bought this off Amazon, and I was like, I don't know, it might not be that great looking, but it really was. It looked really good. I mean, there's some CGI stuff from the time that you're like, okay, but I think that would look whatever way it would look anyway. Overall, I thought it looked really sharp, and I was really happy with the Blu-ray experience of X-Files Fight the Future.
Nice.
How about that, Keith? I don't know what star rating I gave it. Probably 4. I'm going to check. But yeah, to continue the Rob Bowman spectacular, why don't you get into what your pick is?
Okay, so another Rob Bowman movie. My in the mood for was Rain of Fire. Which,
by the way, I did give X-Files Fight the Future 4 stars. But yeah, so do you remember? We didn't talk about this at all. I mean, do you remember our history together with this movie?
Yeah, so
okay.
Well, I think that I know what you're gonna bring up. So I'll start with, this was a movie that I feel like used to always be on like Stars or Cinemax all the time. So I had a lot of like nostalgia for this movie. Like, this was on TV at my mom's house a lot when I was growing up. So fast
and
forward
what year did
to
it come out? Like 03?
02.
02. Okay.
I think 02 or 03. Yeah. So I guess I wasn't that young. I would have been in like 10th or 11th grade, but
no, it's formative years.
Yeah. Anyways, I remember liking it a lot when I was in high school. And then, so fast forward a few years in college, I think this is what you're referring to. You had come to visit me and my buddies out here in Madison.
Yeah.
And I had just got a surround sound system in my tiny little bedroom of this place that was like a 5-bedroom house. Completely unnecessary to have a surround sound system, but I remember
in a room that's like four square feet.
It's literally like 5 feet by 5 feet, but I have this booming freaking surround sound. And I think, if I'm remembering right, you came to visit one time and I was like, hey Matt, you want to watch Rain of Fire with my surround sound?
Yeah, I think it was like this. Well, I would say very early into the trip, you were like, oh, we got to watch a movie in my room or whatever with the surround sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, yeah, let's do it. And I think I do think you fired off like a couple of options. And I think I picked Rain of Fire because I'd never seen it.
Okay.
And you were like, that would be a really good one to watch on the surround sound.
Was I wrong?
No, you weren't. And I have to tell you, like, I didn't know who was in it. I did have a memory of dragons being in it, like blowing fire everywhere and shit, like from the trailers that were on TV. I did remember the TV spots. I completely thought it was like a medieval movie. So when the movie opens up, like, here we are in your room, sitting on, I'm sure, very expensive furniture, you know.
It was a futon that I used to sleep on. It was my bed/couch that I would flip up when people would come in to enjoy the surround sound.
Yeah, very high-end experience. But I just remember, like, the opening shots of the movie are like industrial, like, you know, whatever. Like, it was like modern age. I don't know if it's New York City or London or something.
It's somewhere in England. I think actually, I'm like 90% sure it's London. So yeah, basically, Christian Bale plays this character who, as a young boy, his mother's working in some, I don't know if they're like mines or what it is, but they kind of uncover or release this dragon, and it's basically a post-apocalyptic movie if you haven't seen it. But instead of it being like a virus or zombies or something, it's dragons. so yeah, so
Which
Christian.
now, like, with Game of Thrones being in our lives, and even like the animated, like How to Train Your Dragon stuff. But I gotta tell you, like at the time, it didn't feel like dragons had been touched on in a while.
No, so this is like shortly
Dragonheart, maybe.
after like Lord of the Rings was a thing before
That's
this,
true.
I think,
Yeah.
but there was like no dragons in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's true.
But
I
yeah, so
remember.
it's
Did you ever see Dragonheart from the 90s?
I did, but it's been so long, I don't
I,
remember it.
don't worry, I'm not like recommending it. I
Okay.
just I just remember that was like a dragon movie from the 90s. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was just barely I felt like barely in the zeitgeist for that time. And maybe this was an attempt to bring it back. I was saying to you, it's like probably because I think it had a relatively big budget. It seemed like a big movie.
Some of
Um,
the effects still actually hold up. So I actually was watching the DVD up until we decided, or until I decided I was going to watch this
yeah.
as my pick. So I ordered this specifically to rewatch for the show. And I did notice I was watching it on my, 100-inch projector screen. And dude, some of the effects look great for being from freaking 2001, 2002,
Oh,
whatever.
that's awesome. So
But
when you say the effects, do you mean like the actual like the look of the dragons or beyond that?
so, well, I mean, not just the look of the dragons, because like there's clearly some CGI dragon stuff
Of
that
course.
does look a little goofy,
Yeah.
but they do it really well because there's scenes where like so McConaughey's character, he's like this
Which
he's like this American military dude, and he's like a dragon slayer. And there's these scenes where you see after he's killed a dragon, there's like they used practical effects for those. So
yeah,
there's like a dead dragon, or a couple times you see dead dragons, I think, and those look amazing because they're all
that's
like
awesome.
practical.
I love that.
Um, but even I feel like it was just really well done. Like even the CGI stuff, they do a good job of kind of making it like um, the dragons are kind of like hidden in mist a lot and stuff. But I don't know. I like love this movie. I think it's like highly underrated. Like it is kind of one of those like bro dad movies, but but
And
I
you
mean
were
it's
a bro dad 15 years ago.
yeah, I love those kinds of movies,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's like Christian Bale pre Batman and
Right.
like Matthew McConaughey, like awesome cast, like
I had seen American Psycho when we watched this together. I don't think I really knew like Christian Bale was a name that I knew. I knew he was kind of a big actor, but I didn't really follow his career. I don't think I had even if Batman Begins was out by the time you and me watched this, which it probably was. I don't think I'd even seen it yet because
Mhm.
I didn't see it in the theater. Um, but I had no idea who was in it, so I was like, "Oh, okay, Christian Bale." And then Matthew McConaughey shows up in maybe the most insane character of his whole career, and that's saying something.
His head is fully shaved. He's got these crazy like UFC fighter tattoos. He's just this like hulking like and that's one of the cool things about this movie I think is like the dynamic between Christian Bale's character and Matthew McConaughey's character. So Christian Bale is like he's they're both survivors, but Matthew
Right.
McConaughey is like he's like this military dude that flew over here from America to try to find and kill like the only male dragon. And Christian Bale is like with also his buddy Gerard Butler. They're
Yes,
like
that's right.
they're working together to just kind of like survive and try to outlast the dragons is like their whole thing. But their dynamic is actually part of what I think makes this movie like better than just like any of the other like dumb dad bro movies that I was, referring to.
Sure.
Like, okay, you might laugh at this, but I
Go ahead.
think that they kind of like bring something out in each other, like because Christian Bale is like this pacifist and just wants to dig and like hide in this castle and just outlast the dragons. And then Matthew McConaughey is like he's like the alpha male who's like we need to go and find this thing and kill it. And they kind of butt heads over like trying to decide what they should do. And it sounds silly, but I like that dynamic. I don't know, it's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and
And
from an
it's like,
acting standpoint, I mean, those are two guys that would end up being like the big actors of like the next 20 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
for sure.
obviously, it's like,
And they both give great performances. It's not hokey, really. It's like, like the premise of the movie is silly, but like they do a good job in acting in this. I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I do remember feeling like, wow, that's like a cool angle. Like I was totally thinking that this was some medieval movie where people had to fight dragons. That's what I thought it was.
It's
And
definitely a unique premise for sure.
yeah, it's just the idea of being in this post-apocalyptic world where dragons have been just asleep. I mean, they were basically hibernating. Like
Hmm.
they weren't extinct. It's not like Game of Thrones in that way. Like
Yeah,
they've just been like hibernating, and people were,
yeah,
excavating or digging into the earth or
yeah,
whatever. And all of a sudden, I mean, I guess the part of it that's weird is like they wake one up, and then somehow all of them wake up or something. But
yeah. You kind of gotta
um,
suspend disbelief a little bit there
well, occasionally when dragons are involved, yeah,
when
you do have to.
dragons are flying.
But at the time, I mean, I think several people have versions of this with McConaughey because there was the whole reconnaissance or whatever where he's coming out and doing all these kind of crazy roles. But this was like more in the era where it's like wedged in the middle of him doing all of these rom-coms. It's like after The
Mhm.
Wedding Planner, but before I don't know the names of them all, but I don't know if it was Eight Simple Rules or what, but um I'm not very smart in this category. I can't remember the rom-coms that he was in, but this was like in the middle of that. So I'm like thinking the guy from The Wedding Planner. I'm not thinking Dazed and Confused McConaughey. I'm thinking like what he had become. And then
Yeah,
he comes out as this character and you're like, "Hell yeah."
dude, he's awesome in this movie. I love him. And like the cool thing about it is like it doesn't like plant a flag and say like, oh, Christian Bale's character is like the good guy and Matthew McConaughey's character is the bad guy. Like
Right.
they kind of each like they kind of need each other, even though they have two different ideas.
And they're
And
both
yeah,
probably making like valid points on what can work to,
for
you
sure,
know,
yeah.
ultimately outlive
Yeah.
these damn things.
And I'm probably thinking a little too hard about, a post-apocalyptic movie about dragons, but I love this movie, so I will think hard about it.
No, I love it. And so yeah, this was the Rob Bowman segment. We successfully covered two of the four movies he ever directed. This was in his success run, I guess I would say. Well, the first one was Airborne, the rollerblading movie, which is
I,
good for him. And then the last one was Elektra in 2005. So
mhm.
X-Files that had a budget of, this is just Wikipedia's numbers, so you can fact check this wherever you want, but budget of 66 million, box office of 189 million. And they're like, "All right, Rob Bowman, what do you want to make next?" And he's like, "A post-apocalyptic movie about dragons." And
I'm
and
glad
they're
he
like,
did.
"All
I
right,
love this
here
movie.
you go. Here's $60 million. Go to it." And it that actually had a box office of 82 million. Kind of a surprise to me. We, like you said, we were kind of like in high school or heading into high school when this movie came out. I think I was a freshman probably. Um, but I totally would have thought this was a complete flop. I don't remember knowing anyone who saw it.
It seems
You're the
like one of those movies for sure.
dude. I think you're the only person that I've ever even talked to about this movie.
Dude, okay, so I'm in this like little group chat with a couple other YouTubers though. There's like 6 or 7 of us in there,
Uh-huh.
and we kind of share with each other what movies we're watching every now and then. And when I posted that and was like, "Hey guys, I'm watching this." A
Huh.
couple other people raised their hand and were like, "Okay, we're going to watch it tonight as well." So,
Okay. Did they
I'm
give
not the only
feedback?
fan.
Well, okay. It wasn't a first time watch for them. They're like, "Oh, hell yeah, we'll rewatch that."
No, no. Specifically the dude GC from Face the Movies. He's a really
Okay.
good dude. Check his YouTube channel out. Little plug there. But he
I
was
love
like,
it.
"Dude, I love this movie." Like, so he's with
Good,
me on
good.
it.
All right. Yeah, you're finding see your people are out there. The
Yes,
other
they
Rain of Fire
exist.
fans. I actually need to rewatch it. I wanted to rewatch it for this, but it's like, I mean, it's hard enough for me to watch all the movies that we say we're gonna do for like
Hmm.
each. You know what I mean? To sneak all those. But I mean, I was watching Brick yesterday, so it's like, you know, you're really coming down to the wire on some of this stuff. Maybe in the future I'll be better, but I'm also juggling it with having to watch movies with Lindsay, which, she may veto some things. I didn't run Rain of Fire by her. I kind of feel
I'm
like,
guessing it would have been a no.
but also I am still trying to watch as many 2024 movies as I can because we may be doing our 2024 year in review Oscar movie like maybe next, maybe in 2 episodes, but I'm trying to wrap that stuff up. So I'm trying to see those movies too. But in the future, I am going to try to make an effort to watch all the movies that we're doing, but it
That's
just may
okay.
not
I
ever
haven't
happen.
I haven't been able to watch all of them. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't able to watch your Severin movie. I can't remember the name of it, but
Yeah, closed circuit. Yeah.
closed
Well, you would have
circuit.
had to find a copy of it first. Well, I'm sure it's available, but like that's the thing. I mean, we can't go buying these
Yeah.
movies every time, although it probably will happen a lot.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we literally talk about like 7 movies an episode, so it's
Yeah.
we can't watch them all. Like I know we're trying to keep on like a 2 week schedule here, but even that it's kind of tough to do. So
Totally
I
agree.
think it's
But
fine as long as one of us has seen the movie and we're
yeah.
not talking about a movie we haven't seen. You know?
Yeah, maybe I don't know what year it was when I watched Rain of Fire with you. It was probably like 2008 or something. It
It
was
would
either
have been
2007 or 2008.
yeah, it would have been there somewhere.
So we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary of it. So I'll probably make a trip out there so that we can
Okay.
watch Rain of Fire together in the next like 2 years.
All right. All right. I have a much better setup now.
Yeah. And I do want to see what it looks like on your giant ass projector screen.
Dude, big ass dragons on the projector look pretty cool. Just saying.
I love it. Okay. Do we don't tease in the mood, right?
I don't think
Do
we
we?
have yet, no.
Okay.
We
All
can
right.
if you want to. I
I
don't know
don't
what I'm
know what
gonna
I'm
be in the
doing.
mood for yet,
Yeah,
so
I don't know what I'm doing next yet. So, okay. Well, then I think that wraps us for In the Mood for 2 Rob Bowman classics, X-Files Fight the Future, and Rain of Fire.
all right, Matt, it's time for the spotlight. Let's have you take it away.
Sometimes an idea can be so simple and obvious and yet work so perfectly, which to me makes it genius. We've seen many detective noir stories spun from different angles across the history of film. The Big Lebowski and Who Framed Roger Rabbit quickly come to mind, one putting an endearing, white Russian slamming stoner in the classic lead role, and the other taking the more typical hero prototype and thrusting him into a world populated with animated characters walking amongst your everyday Hollywood citizens. It's all open to personal preference, but I would argue that no world has more tailor made for the detective noir attributes than that of high school. This is the idea that makes everything tick in Ryan Johnson's 2005 debut feature, Brick. The detective noir is probably the most blatant male fantasy genre, and while male fantasy may never fully dissipate, it's certainly most prevalent in one's teenage years. Let's look at it. You have a character with wits, sex appeal, and toughness, or at a minimum, able to take a punch. No matter how physically intimidating the guys these characters encounter, they can always hold their own, even if it means they get knocked around a little. They're always a bit hardened by a past love interest, wearing the hurt on their sleeves, not ashamed of it, but also clear that they will never allow it to happen again. In an unrelated and standalone event, my wife was recently reading The Fifth Woman by Henning Mankell, a Kurt Wallander crime novel. I know nothing of this book, other than at one point she stopped to share a passage with me. Hardly, Wallander said. In the eyes of most people, being a private detective is rather shady occupation. Or childish, Hoagland said. A game for men who have never grown up. Now, my wife is well aware that I've often cited private detective as my dream profession. Both of us knowing full well that me coming face to face with any perilous situation would result in my certain doom. My initial reaction to her reading this to me started as harsh, but I thought about it for a second and then moved to, well, like Metallica would say, it's sad but true. So there we have it. This is the world we are in. Our classic male fantasy private investigator slammed into the never-ending melodrama and natural archetypes of high school teenagers. Is there a more perfect fit? What makes this perfectly fun to explore in film is Johnson is able to introduce deathly serious plot elements but meshes it with careful staging and hard-boiled dialogue that make you crack a smile, always feeling like you're in a fantasy world. You don't have to recognize every reference, but you 100% get that something is being referenced, and it never feels crowbarred. The film opens in medias res, takes you through a gamut of camera work, wild angles, and unique lighting while always feeling like a smooth ride. Rian Johnson has gone on to be a polarizing director. The negative end, most notably being for his Star Wars entry, The Last Jedi. But I just don't think you can debate his acumen or prowess when it comes to filmmaking. You may not always like the end product, but he's certainly a highly skilled technician that lives for the details. With 20 years now passing, Brick is one of the movies that continues to both impress and highly entertain with every viewing. Johnson has seen great critical and commercial success in his career, highlighted by Knives Out, Looper, and even acclaimed episodes of Breaking Bad. But it's his first film that remains my personal favorite. So, Keith, let's get into it. First thing that stands out to me in Brick, Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the lead role. He's kind of had an interesting career overall. I think he's great in this. I love him in this. It's hard for me to picture this movie without him being in it. At the time when this movie came out, I probably only knew him from, of course, the classic film from my youth, Angels in the Outfield, and being on Third Rock from the Sun.
I
But
thought you were gonna say Halloween H2O.
no, I had seen Halloween H2O, but I don't think I really often placed him being in that.
Well, he gets offed pretty early on in the beginning of the movie.
It's a short but memorable appearance.
Yeah.
But I was alluding to this earlier. There was a time period, and it was kind of around the same time period where I watched Reign of Fire with you, but where I was watching a lot of movies on HBO on demand. It was sort of the early days of the streaming experience. Like, you know, that we didn't have like all the streaming stuff yet, but if you had HBO and you could get like HBO on demand, they would just put a bunch of movies on. And around that 2007 era, there was a bunch of movies that I watched that I liked. There was a bunch of movies that I like tried to watch and I just don't think I was ready for yet. Like, I think Mulholland Drive was one of those episodes. I think Mulholland Drive was one of those movies. I think Barton Fink was one of those movies, and I think Brick was another one of those movies that I tried to watch on there that I don't know, it just wasn't hitting for me. In a way now that I can't understand what I wasn't getting, because I do feel like this is such a perfect thing, taking the idea of these kind of classic detective noir movies and then just like placing it in high school using all the same types of dialogue and everything. It's such a perfect idea. I love it. And I love watching it and experiencing it, but it did not hit for me the first time. I don't know what your history with the movie is.
So I kind of think that I bounced off this too, if I'm remembering right. Like first watch, I think was like a Blockbuster rental. I definitely didn't see it until I was in college. I think if I'm remembering right, it was like a Blockbuster rental, and yeah, just like the way the dialogue is and stuff, it was kind of like hard to follow. And at that point, I definitely was not going back and watching like old noir movies. So
Oh yeah.
but I did kind of think that, like you were saying, the concept of it is cool. Like doing a noir in high school is like a unique thing. Like I don't know if there's any other movies like that.
Yeah. I wish I didn't stumble and trip over the word noir so much, but I do for some reason have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
um,
have like a bastardized accent from my time living in like New England and then like upstate New York, and now I like Pittsburgh. I don't know. There's certain words that I just feel like haven't fit into uh the blend for me, and noir is like one of them. Now it seems to be coming out smoothly, but boy did I trip over it in that intro.
yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I wasn't like a massive fan of this, but on rewatch, I did, think it was really cool.
So I don't know if this was the same trip. I'm gonna hit you with something that I don't know if you were expecting. I don't know if this was the same trip of Rain of Fire, because I did make a few trips to Madison in subsequent years, um, back around that time period. But it was definitely at the East Washington house, and we rented, or like maybe Burton came home from Blockbuster with it. Ryan Johnson's follow up to this movie, The Brothers Bloom. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah. I can't say I specifically remember. I can't say I specifically remember watching this with you that time, but I do like that movie from what I remember of it.
I don't think
Yeah.
I've watched it since the time we rented it and watched it. I was like fine on it. Like I think I enjoyed the experience of watching it. Had no idea it was Ryan Johnson. Really didn't know who Ryan Johnson was at the
Hmm.
time. I was just like, "Oh, this is some random movie we're watching." Like I
Another
didn't.
Adrian Brody flick though, right?
That
He's
is true.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. But how about that? What a weird tie-in, huh?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um Brothers Bloom, which is a movie, it's probably his most forgotten movie. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the one nobody talks about because I think Looper has a pretty big following. I think the first Knives Out movie is like really top notch. I wasn't like that big on The Glass Onion or whatever, but and obviously The Last Jedi may be the most polarizing movie of like the last 20 years in
I
terms of
love
people.
Looper. Looper is probably my favorite of his movies.
Yeah, mine's this one, but yeah, Looper is up there for me too. It's a cool like unique sci-fi movie.
Hmm.
Um Overall though, Ryan Johnson is a director that I don't think I can fully appreciate everything that he's doing. Like I can tell that he's doing things that I don't have the appreciation for. like just all of the different things that he likes to do with the camera and staging scenes. I, I, I mean, would you think that this movie was a first-time filmmaker?
No, absolutely not.
It's wild.
It looks so good. And I think I was telling you before we recorded a little bit that I fell asleep last night watching this with the director's commentary on,
Yeah.
and I fell asleep before. I think that he had the cinematographer on with him at one point, but I was kind of dozing in and out. But they were kind of talking a little bit about how they used like practical lights a lot, which is kind of a staple of like the noir, where
Right.
typically you don't see like a lamp like in a shot actually being used to light a subject.
Right. Right.
Um,
And they
but
do that a
it's a
few
really
times, right? I mean, there's a part where they have a lamp inside of a van.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. The pins, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
There's some really cool set design too. Yeah, like I love his little basement like office.
Yeah,
Like it's very
I know.
it's not intricate, but it's like it just has a cool feeling to it. I don't
For
know.
sure.
Like
And it sort of is like, even though it's a more modern movie, I think taking place in real time in like '05 or whatever, that house, like the Pin's house kind of seems like almost mid-century modern or something. Like what's going on
uh-huh.
in that basement seems like out of the 50s or 60s or something.
And the
So it's like,
fact that so the pin is supposed to be in high school too, right? Or am I wrong about that?
yes. I mean, as far as I
So
know, I would say I believe he's supposed to be in high school, or at a minimum, he's like Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused. Second time reference this episode, where he's like, those are his peers still.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
he,
either way, the pin's choice in wardrobe and,
yeah,
decor of his little office is just ridiculous for like being a high school kid, you know?
yeah, absolutely. One thing that I have to talk about that may inspire zero conversation, but it has to be said by me every time I watch this movie. The girl who plays Laura, I'm like, oh, I recognize her. She's gone on to do other things. I know who she is. And then I go look up her credits and I don't know anything else except she was in like 2 or 3 episodes of Mad Men. And I do remember her character from it, but that is definitely not what I'm thinking. I don't know if she just has this look or she reminds me of somebody else, but like it bothers me every time because I'm like,
No.
oh, that girl, like, oh yeah, she's gone on and done like a bunch of other things that I'm familiar with. And then I look it up and no, that's not the case. And it's like
Yep.
I don't know. It like hurts my brain.
I had the same exact thought and I looked her up and I pulled it up again
Oh,
because I
good.
totally forgot about this, but
I did not set you up for this.
she was in some episodes of Marin.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know if I didn't watch all of Marin. I definitely saw like the first season. I don't know when she was in it, but
She does
I
have a recognizable face though, and then yeah, you look it up and you're like, I don't know.
I did see Mark Maron live one time, and when I got my picture with him afterwards, I told him that his show on IFC was really good, and he was really appreciative of that.
Yeah. Was
He
he
was like,
like,
"Thanks,
"Gee,
man."
thanks."
Actually, he stopped and looked at me in the eyes and said, "Thank you." Like it was like a very sincere. Like I think he was happy that somebody was watching his show.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
guess that show probably wasn't that popular. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. It was on IFC. How many people watch TV shows on IFC?
Oh, I thought it was on HBO, wasn't it? I could be
No,
wrong about that.
I'm pretty sure it was on IFC. In fact, I think I said to him, "Your show on IFC is really good."
Oh,
And he stopped and he looked at me in the eyes and said, "Thank you." Um, yeah, it was a really cool moment for me.
that's cool. I'm
So I
happy
got to
for you.
tell you, I'm not looking at the camera right now, so I struggle with the um, lighting, but I'm sure you can. I think you have this in hand too. The Kino
Yeah,
Lorber. I think we both bought it
like
on
the same
sale
day.
at Barnes and Noble. Did you buy it in person or
I
online?
did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
bought it in person.
Wow. Awesome. Okay. So yes, we were like two ships passing in the night. Both ships crashing into Barnes and Nobles and buying um,
Too many Blu-rays.
4K versions of Brick. So um, I can't remember what the situation was. I can't remember if Lindsay and I were over there going to a movie or something. But we decided that we would go to Barnes and Noble. She was getting a couple books, and I was looking at the movies, and I saw this, and I knew that I already owned the Blu-ray, the Kino Lorber Blu-ray, and I saw it, and it was 30% off. You know, always a sucker for a deal, especially to buy something that I already own. Um, and I was like, Lindsay's gonna kill me if I buy this in front of her. I mean, like her and I had watched the Blu-ray together before, so I felt like she knew that I had it. And I was like texting you about it real time while this was happening. And then I showed it to her and I'm like, you're gonna kill me, but I want to buy this. And she's like, why would I kill you? Just get it. And I'm like, she's like, but if you're getting it, you have to buy me books. And I was like, okay, fair deal. But it made me feel like she didn't know that I already had it. But it also
Oh,
felt like I can't come fully clean now. I have to just play this out.
oh,
So
does
I
she
bought
listen to the show?
she does listen to the show.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
here's the thing. There's more to the story. I mean, I did come clean as soon as we left the store. So I bought her books. I 4K in hand was like, "So here's why I thought you were going to be mad. Because I already own it." And she was like, "What the, like bah, bah, bah. And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but I do love this movie and I want to upgrade and I can always just give the Blu-ray to Shane, like and it'll have a home where it will be loved." So it was okay. We got past. Sometimes you just have to pull that card and be like, listen, I need this, okay? Like this is just I need this, okay? And I bought you some books, so we should be good. Um 4K experience looks really great. I will say there was a couple moments. I brought this up to you before on the show where sometimes I feel like there's certain 4Ks that like look too dark. I there were a couple moments of that in this, but mostly not, and mostly everything looked really good, and I'm really happy that I upgraded to 4K. This is just a movie that I love, and if they put it out in an even higher definition, I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it for the third time. What did you think of the look? I think this movie overall looks really great, so the 4K experience for me was, pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about the lighting and like all the camera angles and stuff. It's all very purposeful, and it gives you like a, I don't know, just cool, unsettling a little bit feeling. It's very mysterious, I feel like, and yeah, you can definitely tell it was shot on film. So, um,
Yes, I was telling you in text message like for years I've felt this way. And I think part of it was because up to a certain point, like everything was shot on film. And I just remember somewhere in the mid 2000s starting to go to movies and like noticing when it wasn't. And like I was telling you, I don't feel like I have a trained eye for these things. Well, let me say this. I definitely do not have a trained eye for these things, but it's one of those things that I could just casually tell the difference. I probably can't always tell the difference, but sometimes still I'm like, okay, this very clearly was shot on film versus sometimes I see something I'm like, yes, this was shot digitally and it looks like shit. Like I
yeah,
do think that people that swear by shooting on film, like you can always tell, and I always think it looks better. I'm not like a hardcore like, hey, this is going to ruin the movie if it's not, but I do find myself appreciating it a little more when I can tell.
yeah, yeah, for sure. That was one of those conversations that they were having in the director's commentary that I kind of caught like a little bit of as I was like
In and out of
dozing
sleep.
in and out, yeah, of sleep. Where I thought it was kind of cool that they made this movie for like under 500,000,
That's nuts to
apparently.
me. I mean, it looks better to me than some movies that I've seen with multi-million dollar
Yeah,
budgets.
and
None come to mind, but
I guess Ryan Johnson and I can't remember the name of the cinematographer, but they were talking about this in the commentary, how they were kind of like trying to decide if they should shoot it on film or digitally because of the budget
Right,
constraints.
right.
And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think the cinematographer kind of talked him into spending a little bit of money, to shoot it on film because of, the benefits of like how good it will look,
Yeah.
Um, but so I think he was probably pretty happy with making that decision.
I think so. I think the final product speaks for itself, and I do think you would notice if it wasn't. I mean, it's the difference between having something that looks like Paul Thomas Anderson directed it, or having something that maybe looks like a straight to VOD movie.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know,
Especially
um,
from that time period too, before like it probably would have looked horrible because like they didn't have like nowadays like digital cameras are getting better. There's these like
yeah,
red cameras and like stuff that's like actually affordable but can still
it
look
would
pretty good.
it would have shot it
Um
on like those little mini DV cameras like we had.
yeah, I mean they might have. I don't know. I don't think they talked about what cameras specifically they were looking at using, but I know the
Yeah.
technology's a lot better now, so
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad.
absolutely. And I think that it happens more now where I like can't tell as clearly, but I don't know, like more often than not, I still feel like you're like, okay, yeah, this was shot on film and I can tell and it makes a difference in a positive way.
So I haven't seen the holdovers, but I know you have. What did you think about the visual look of that? Because that movie is kind of contentious right now.
Is it?
I know some
Tell me the
people
story. I don't know. Was that not shot on film?
no. So that movie was shot digitally.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as I know, this is just like from watching other
Yeah.
people's videos talking and giving rants about it. But
Uh-huh.
apparently that apparently that movie was shot digitally, and they
Okay.
added these filters to make it look like it was shot in the
Well, there you
70s.
go. How about this, Keith? We can bury me in the same episode of which I was going off about this. If you had just asked me if I thought Holdovers was shot on film or digital, I would have said film. So obviously,
See,
I would have gotten that wrong.
some people can't notice. Some people are like very, pixel peepy about it, I guess you would say.
Pixel peepee. Okay, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
guess I
peeping
don't.
pixels.
Yeah, and then that's the thing, and maybe that's where when we go to my untrained eye, and it's a good example because it's actually never something that I'm looking for. It's
Yeah.
just like there's certain movies you like get into it, and you're like, okay, yeah, I can tell this was shot on film and it looks good. And then sometimes I'm like, I can tell this was shot digitally and it's not taking me out of the movie, but it's just a little bit noticeable. And then there's movies like The Holdovers that are meant to trick snobs like me
Hmm.
and make me think that it's shot on film when it wasn't. No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really not always the most important thing, especially for a movie like The Holdovers, which I'm sure I mean, I don't really know what Alexander Payne's mindset was, and maybe he's spoken about this, but like I know he just wanted to make it look older because I remember even in the opening credits they used like an older I can't remember if it was like Warner Pictures or whatever, but like I remember them using like an older logo when the movie was opening. Like
Hmm.
and so like having it look older and of a certain era, I think was part of it. So it may not be that he was like, "Oh, I'm going to make it look like film," and because of some artistic choice, but more to feed like the story and the look he was going for, and not necessarily like an artistic choice. I could see that being the
Yeah.
case. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say he's the most. I mean, when you think about like you know visual directors, I don't think most people are seeing his movies for that. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like Sideways is like, oh, look at the look of all of these glasses of wine.
Yeah.
But it's like a hilarious, great movie. It's just like I don't
I mean, I
know.
think we've talked about this a little bit before too, when we've talked about like our collecting habits and stuff. But that's like why I haven't upgraded most of my comedies from DVD
That's
because
right. Yeah,
you're not watching them for the visual fidelity.
you're
Like
right. You're right.
I don't really care what super bad looks like. I'm gonna laugh at it either way.
That's right. That's right. I mean, and let me ask you this because I really don't know. Where are you on Ryan Johnson overall? And before you answer, if I was just not talking to you, I would think like just learning more about him. And when I hear him talk about movies and when I've heard him in interviews, I would be like, I bet Keith would have an appreciation for this dude just because he seems to be very technical when it comes to movie making and does a lot of things that I would think like the people that are into the behind the camera side of it more, the production side of it more, would have an appreciation for it. That's the way it feels to me.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't watched like any interviews with him or anything, so I guess I don't really know, or I didn't really know like how technical he was. I mean,
Maybe I'm getting that wrong. That's just the sense that I get.
I guess you could say that from like thinking about the way
Just this
his
being
movies
his
play
first
out.
movie. Okay, let me give you a comparison. This is probably like wildly unfair. Brick as your first movie versus Clerks as your first movie from a
True.
filmmaking standpoint. Like,
Yeah. I mean, he does move the camera a lot more, which is like a technical thing. It's not easy for first-time directors to
that foot chase,
plan
I
stuff
was
out.
I
Dude,
found myself being really impressed by the foot chase in this
yeah.
watch.
So there was in this was a part that I had listened to the special features
Yeah.
the commentary or whatever, and they kind of talked through how they did that, and it sounded really cool. So basically what they did was they put these little like rubber tiny balls on the ground with like a piece of cardboard, I think is what they said,
Oh,
and had
cool.
it like, and they didn't fully explain it, but I think they must have like painted it to look like the concrete or whatever. So when he
Gotcha.
kicks his shoes off at the end of the chase, is this what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yes,
Where he
yes.
runs and he runs and he slides, and then the guy falls over, trips over him.
Yes,
They
by the way,
explained it, and it sounded very very interesting how they did that shot. Like apparently it was all one take. I think they
it
said.
looked like it. It did look like it, like a long
So he
tracking shot.
apparently the stunt guy, whoever did that, trips over Joseph Gordon-Levitt's legs or whatever, and he lands on like a mattress or something that they had there that was like just out of frame. And
Right.
then as the camera's moving, the stunt guy did it himself, like moved the thing out of the way and then leaned up against the bar or whatever it was.
By the way,
Um,
what a classic high school attack move, the slide.
yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Do you remember when Josh did that to me?
Yes, I do.
My
He just
tooth
like,
went into my lip.
oh yeah, I don't think you were too thrilled about that. It was definitely, you went down hard.
Oh yeah. I didn't fold though. The hall monitor
No.
came and asked me what happened, and I was like, I fell. I had
Like a
like
good
blood
soldier.
pouring out of my mouth, and I'm just like, "Ah, I can't get my friend in trouble."
Yeah, you should have just ratted.
No, Josh is a good dude.
No, I know. But yeah, I mean that was maybe the last time I saw somebody slide tackle someone in a hallway, just because people were
Mhm.
like, "Oh wow, this can go horrifically wrong."
Yeah.
Keith was almost like toothless following this event.
Yeah, my tooth literally went into my lip. Yeah. I
But
didn't need
watching,
stitches though. It wasn't that bad.
that's true. You know what? More slide tackles.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, you've
needed.
got me convinced. We need to bring it back. But
Yeah.
that moment, and it only really struck me on this viewing when he slides and that dude goes flying into that pole. And I think he like, they say in the movie he like injures his shoulder or something, but I'm like, would he not be dead? Like he goes flying into
Yeah.
it and it makes like the loudest like thud noise you've ever heard. And I'm like, okay, that dude's dead. That
Yeah.
dude is just dead. And that's one of the, I mean, one of the things about this movie, and like I was trying to hit on it in the intro a little bit, is like there's these things that happen that are like so serious, but like it just never feels that serious, even though it's like people dying, just because you're in this weird fantasy world where it's like completely detective noir dialogue, this hard boiled, like, you know, that one of my favorite scenes is when he's like with the assistant vice principal and they're talking about like the English teacher and he's like, she's tough, and he's like, she's fair. Like it's in like all the moments where it's like talking to Brain. I mean, it's every moment of the movie, it's every like exchange. Like again, it's the way you describe pins. Like it just never feels real. So like when there's like people dying, you don't
Yeah.
you're not like overcome with this like remorse or sadness or anything, because it's not that type of movie.
And I'll say one of my favorite things about the movie is how much Brandon gets the shit kicked out of him,
Yeah.
and then he just walks it off every time. Like,
That's what I mean when I say it's like kind of like the male fantasy, like that's an element of it too. Like you're not necessarily like the strong badass dude, but you can hold your own with any badass out there. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like the criminals, the jocks, whatever, like you're going to be able to go toe to toe with them, and you
Mhm.
know, in most cases he gets the upper hand. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he has the last blow or whatever in most instances, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm buying this loser nerd, but
Yeah. Well, also the part where he runs into Tug when he's like about to smash his car window,
yeah.
and basically he lets Tug like punch him in the face. I don't know, a bunch of times. And it's like, dude, you would be knocked out or like I don't know.
Yeah,
There's no way he was taking that.
what do you think the deal with Tug is? Some anger issues, wouldn't you say?
I would say. I did think that part was hilarious though when he sees him standing over the car with the piece of concrete where he's going and he just walks at him like he's going like this, like squeezing his hands like he's so angry. I like the Tug character. I think he's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely having like roid rage or something. Like I was thinking to myself watching it this time, this is nothing really related to the movie Brick other than the Tug character is wearing one, but the term wife beater, what an
Oh,
insane
yeah.
thing. Like that's what those were called.
I
I mean
take back
maybe
what I said. I don't like Tug. Tug is a jerk, but some of his stuff is funny.
well, I will say you do buy the character. That's the thing where this movie walks this line of this fantasy noir world, but then other things seem really like believable. Like a lot of the characters like fitting into high school like archetypes. Like there's like the drama girl, there's the jocks, there's like the stoner kids that skateboard and hang out outside of that pie place,
Yeah.
which reminded me of you and your friends. You know?
We hung out at the skate park, okay?
Yeah. All right, I get it. But that's like one of the fun things is like you do like it does fit so well, like having all of these like character types, and Tug is certainly one of them. The kind of badass dude. I mean, there were certainly kids that I was afraid of in high school.
Oh yeah.
There
There
were
was
some
kids
Tugs.
there were kids in our school whose entire persona was just getting into fights.
Yeah, they were very Tug esque in their
Yeah.
lifestyles. Yeah. Now, this is going to seem stupid, and I don't mind being stupid. I should know this from watching the movie and even doing some level of research. Is it cocaine or is it heroin? The drug.
I think it's heroin.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense when they say dose it, and
Yeah.
but yeah, sort of insane. I mean, listen, drugs in high school sure is a thing, and I'm sure there's parts of the country, and maybe even more so than I think, but like I cannot believe that there's this heroin empire in high school. Like I said, fantasy
Yeah.
world completely, but there are things that even within the constructs of the fantasy world that you want to believe. Um,
I think they could have got away with it just being like weed or
I
something.
agree. I guess the hard part,
It still would have been cool. You know, the pin
yeah.
could have just been the weed pin and it would have been a little bit more believable.
Well, it would have been like Alpha Dog. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like which is based off a real story, which was real kids that were like just out of high school that did have like a full blown marijuana like drug ring. You know.
Yeah.
I guess the hard part is like the whole thing that happens with trying to cut the drugs and then I don't know if somebody dies or if they just like OD from it. The whole thing that sets everything in motion. I guess I assumed someone died from it, but I don't know if that's clear. Maybe they just OD. Um, but I guess I don't know. You would have had to do something different there, and so that's why heroin works for this because you can cut it up, and then people can be having bad
Yeah.
reactions because they think they're getting something that they're not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's a fair point.
but there's certainly a lot of plot elements to this, and I told you beforehand, I made it a point like we weren't gonna try to go that in order, beat by beat, just because there's so much to it. But how do you feel overall about the full story? Do you feel like you get it? Do you feel like there's parts that you still need to connect? I'm not sure where I'm at, to be honest. I think I mostly get it, but there's always so many details that you're like, do they all check out? Like I haven't done that math. Like I haven't gone back
Yeah.
through ever and been like, does everything check out here? Does that make sense? Like, I think it mostly does.
So I feel like the first at least half of it is pretty easily followable.
Yeah.
The part where I start to get a little confused was closer to the end when the whole struggle happens at the Pin's house, and I'm kind of like, what's going on here? And
Yeah,
you don't even see a lot of the struggle. A lot of it is happening off camera, so you're not
right.
really sure what's going on. But and then at the very end, when you find out, I'm spoilers if you haven't seen it. We're talking about this movie, but when you find out that like Laura is behind the whole thing,
Yeah.
I still don't
I
like
think the
fully
stuff
understand that.
so I think the stuff at the house is what's supposed to tip Brendan off that it is Laura, because basically everything gets set in motion upstairs at that house where you're not seeing what's going on, you're just hearing it. But somebody, I don't know, either stole the other brick or what.
It's
um,
confusing. I even read the Wikipedia before this show. I didn't tell you this,
yeah,
but I read the Wikipedia because I wasn't sure how
sure,
in
yeah,
detail we were going to go. And I'm still a little confused, and it was pretty detailed.
yeah. So somehow she's back involved with what's going on upstairs and like getting, like, kind of ruining the whole piece that was meant to exist between these two parties. Now, I think either way, Brendan wanted the police to show up there, but it ends up escalating a lot further than I think he intended to. Which is this clear to you that both the kind of villain dudes are dead after that sequence? Because
It wasn't clear to me until I read the Wikipedia.
okay, it is hard because in the last
Yeah.
scene, like, a lot of shit is said, and he's saying it in the, like, that very distinct dialect, and
Uh-huh.
but basically, like, I think what you're supposed to take away is the Pin is killed in hand-to-hand combat with Tug.
Yeah,
Um,
the Wikipedia said that yeah, Tug kills him, and then Tug is then killed in a shootout with the police.
by the police. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, I don't think that was Brendan's intent. I think he wanted them to be arrested, but he
yeah,
realized that Laura, like, got involved, and then he kind of was able to tie it back to, the whole story and put all the pieces back together.
yeah.
But it is without him. I mean, I guess people sometimes are like, "Oh, this is bad storytelling to have people explain this," but that's part of the detective noir thing too.
Yeah,
And there's so many elements to it that you need the explanation. You need that scene where somebody sits down and goes, "Okay, this happened because of this, and this happened because of this." It's
yeah,
like it's like Clue, like, you
yeah,
need somebody who's like putting all the pieces back together because there's just too many things. And then they always introduce little weird red herrings that don't mean anything. So you need to
mhm,
just focus on, like, what matters. And
yeah,
I ultimately do enjoy the end of the movie where it is Laura. Um, he explains everything. You find out the big dramatic thing that Emily's baby was his.
yeah,
And they do a little lost in translation thing where she whispers mother, and then there's a bunch of, like, rustling, and you don't get it.
mhm.
I think you're supposed to take it that it's the F word. um, which I guess could have dual meaning based on what was just revealed.
Right, yeah,
But I really like the part with Brain too. After that, it reminds me of the end of Blade Runner, where the dude's like, standing behind Deckard, and he's like, or across the building from him or whatever, and is like, you know, it's a shame she's gonna die or whatever. Like, that whole part just, like, was reminding me of the same type of vibe delivery.
yeah.
I
We
I
didn't
was
really
reading.
talk about him that much, but I liked his character a lot too. I like
Yeah,
just having this like behind the scenes guy who's doing like research and like he has all these connections that you don't really he a lot of the stuff he does is off camera, but he is kind of an important character. Like
yeah. I
I
mean,
like
these
him.
these detective guys, they always need, like, a little sidekick that's doing some of the the dirty work that they don't want to do, the leg work. There's a lot of leg work involved in these cases, and you need a guy like that. I was reading some people who thought that Brain was, like, not a real character, and it's just, like, part of Brendan's subconscious or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think it's okay to interpret things how you want. I don't think that this is that movie, though. I think you are,
No.
like,
That
these
sounds
are
like a
all
dumb internet theory.
high school. I mean, it's, like, supposed to be just all high school
Yeah.
characters, and I just love how they weave all that stuff in, like, who she been eating lunch with, because
Yeah.
it is, like, such a
Yeah.
important, like, high school dynamic. Like, and the Brain character ties a lot of that stuff together
Yeah.
nicely. Um, Let me just circle back to the notes real quick and see if there was anything else that I felt like we had to hit on. There's one other scene that I think is really funny in the movie that it just bears mentioning for me, and it's when the first time they're at the Pin's house, and they like go upstairs and his mom is
The orange juice thing,
yeah,
where she's like, "Do you want Tang or was it Tang? I don't remember, or Sunny D
yeah,
or something."
it's
We were
just like
talking about.
so funny to me because it's like again, it's this juxtaposition where you're taking like these high school kids and putting them in these like, very, very serious moments where like it's crime and drug rings and people are dying, and then it's just like, the sweet mom like, like, oh yeah, here's your orange juice, honey. Like it's just like a fun juxtaposition.
Yeah,
Um, So, uh, that's Brick. Like I said, for me, it's become a 5-star movie after a few watches, and I really love it. I'm really gonna keep it as something that I revisit for years to come. I'm still always interested in everything Ryan Johnson is doing. I sort of wish that he just did Knives Out and then moved on to other original IP. Like I don't know that I needed 3 movies, even though I do like the Benoit Blanc character and Daniel Craig, who we talked about recently, I do think is really great. He was on sort of a fun run of like these original movies, and then does Star Wars. It's sort of polarizing, and although albeit made a shitload of money, of course, and then he does Knives Out, which is great. I kind of wish at that point he moved on to a different original idea, but.
yeah,
We got
I
one more
agree.
of those, and then I guess we'll see what he does after that.
Yeah, I agree. Um, at least as
Anything
far
else
as
you wanted to hit on?
no, I mean I don't really want to end on a negative note for this movie because I do like it. I think it's like for me I think it's like a 4-star movie, but the only
Yeah,
reason is because like I feel like this movie almost could just be like a short film joke.
that's
Like
true. Yeah.
it because it's like the idea of it being a noir in high school is cool. It's funny, but like people are probably going to hate on me for saying this, but it's the same problem that I have with The Witch, which is
Yeah.
the dialogue is a big barrier. Like
Okay.
you have to be, for me at least, I have to be like in the right mode or mood to like you have to be 100% focused, or at least I
Oh,
do.
that's
Like
true. Yeah,
you're
I
basically
do get
like
that. Well,
translating another language. Like
do you watch movies in subtitles or not?
I have started to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's helpful for me. Is all I'll say. Like
Yeah.
that. That's probably one of the reasons why it it was tough for me the first time I ever tried to watch this, because yeah, I get what you're saying. Like I watch everything with subtitles now, which is like insanely helpful for me to like get all the dialogue, get everything that's meant to be said. I mean, I think there were years where I would watch movies and I totally thought they were saying something different than what they were actually saying.
Well, it's not even like not being able to hear the dialogue.
Yeah,
It's like you have to translate it in your head because I don't watch a
agree.
ton of noir movies like this, you know? So like I have to
Agree.
be like the way that they're talking is like not how I'm used to hearing people talk. So like that's my complaint about The Witch too because they go back to that, old English style of, speaking. And to me that's just like a little bit of a barrier. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, where are you on detective noir stuff overall? I mean, for me, it's one of the things I was alluding to in the intro is like that is a big genre for me. I love these movies. I'm not like a diehard of the old stuff like Maltese Falcon. I have some of those movies and I enjoy watching them, but I almost like this stuff more. I like the the Big Lebowski, Inherent Vice, like all these like taking the noir elements and putting like a different spin on them. I kind of like that more, but I do love the classic stuff too. I love Chinatown, like
Yeah. I
so
like Chinatown. Yeah.
it's a big genre for me, probably not as big for you.
No, and I'm not saying that I don't like the genre. I just
Sure.
don't have a lot of history with it. I don't watch a lot of them. So I did really like that one that you gave me as a gift though, Double
Oh, Double
Indemnity.
Indemnity. Yeah.
That one was really cool. I actually want to rewatch that one
Yeah,
sometime.
maybe we'll do that for the show someday.
Okay.
That that is a fun one.
Yeah.
Billy
Nothing against the
Wilder.
genre as a whole. Like I said, it's just for me I have to be like in the right like I have to be able to be focused and that's
No,
kind
I
of hard,
totally get
you
it.
know.
And like I said, I mean, my first log of this on Letterbox, I think, was 4. And then I said that like the next time I logged it, it was 4.5. And then now I'm a 5. And I don't think I'll ever come off a 5 now, but it's like I don't always get there the first time. And sometimes I never get there. But with Brick, I did, and I'm never going back.
Yeah. I think it's a
So
5-star concept. The concept is awesome for
yes.
sure.
And I did see some people saying online, like they were like, this just did not hit like I saw that there were people who were like, it just doesn't work. That like people were saying that, and I'm like, I think it works perfectly. Just like, you know, putting the guy who wants to believe in aliens with like the scientist and having them investigate shit every episode. Yes, 100% that fits and works for me
Yeah.
every time. The high school noir, I love it. I do want to bookend the conversation though with what I started with talking points, which is Joseph Gordon-Levitt being in the lead here. It's super weird. This was '05. Like I said, I didn't see it when it came out, but it felt to me that when I saw him in Inception, which was like what, 2010, it when he showed up as like whatever, the second lead in that, I guess the third lead, um whatever. He's a important character somewhere in the building, but when he showed up in that, that was the first time I had felt like I had seen him in ages. And I was like, wow, it's good to see him back. Like that's cool. Like, and he has gone on to have like a very regular, consistent career. It's ups and downs in terms of like how big the roles he's in, and sometimes it feels like he disappears for a while, but I don't know what it is. From '05 to 2010, it felt like he was completely gone from my life and then was just all of a sudden back in it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The only other big notable ones that I am looking at on his IMDb is like 500 Days of Summer, but that was before
That's true,
Inception.
which I did watch too, and I liked. So at the time, so I guess it was that. I guess
Yeah,
it was that first, and then Inception. So it was like two back to back. But you would say 4 years is not that long, but at that time in my life, it felt like a long time for an actor
yeah.
to like not be in things that I was seeing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, but it just felt like he was a guy that was gone and then was back.
Yeah. He does feel like he's been gone again. Like I
That's
think
true.
he does take significant breaks, it seems like. Um,
Yeah, which I don't know if that's by design or not, but overall, I mean, you look at it, I mean it's 2025, so it's 20 years of pretty good roles from him, and
I mean,
he still looks great.
he has roles from 2024. It's just stuff that I haven't seen, I guess.
Yeah.
He was in the new Beverly Hills Cop movie.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
even know there was one.
Beverly Hills Cop Axel AF. I don't know what
All
this
right.
is.
Well,
I don't know.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Ryan Johnson, Brick, 5 stars from me, 4 stars from Keith.
All right, that was Brick. Now it's time for homework. Matt, why don't you talk about your assignment today? I asked you to watch The Day of the Jackal. What did you think of it?
Um, and I don't have a physical media copy of it. I rented it off Prime, I
Okay.
believe. Yes, if you can
I can
show.
show the DVD.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you. Um, and I think it's 1973. Although weirdly, of course, when you go to search it, there's like a Peacock original like TV series going right now. Did you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that until recently. It just popped up like as a
Yeah.
suggested thing to watch.
Well, I'll say this: it makes sense to me that it's being done as a series right now because there's a lot to the story. Like, I think maybe you said it was a slow burn. I don't know, or maybe I read somewhere that it was a slow burn. And in some sense, it's a slow burn because it's long, but it's like very erratically paced. Like there's so much happening in the story. Like I feel like it's almost like quick cuts. Like
Yeah,
there's little pieces that move the storyline along, and there's like so many of them. And I think it's like a 2.5 hour movie. I mean, it's not short,
yeah.
especially for that time, a movie of this ilk. I mean, I guess look, in the '70s, long movies were being made, but I just felt like there was, unless it's like the big directors, it just felt like people wanted to keep stuff a little tighter. Um, it's I definitely liked it. I'll say that. The pacing was a little like weird for me to get used to, just because it just felt like it was like moving very quickly, and it sort of reminded me of the original Wicker Man. And I don't really have anything else to really back that up. Like it's not like story wise, it's not like it. Like Wicker Man is like supernatural, and and this is not at all. I mean, this is 100% like it's like historical fiction. I mean, it's not real, but there's real people in it.
I
Like
think I
real.
might have misrepresented it when I was assigning this to you because I think the way I described it was just like, oh, it's just an assassin on the run movie, which I guess I was just kind of misremembering it. It's much more of like you see it's a lot of build
That's
up
true.
and
Yeah.
you don't even see like the hit until like the very end of the movie, like
Right,
the
right.
job. And it's very it it's more 50-50 like cop trying to find or
Like a
detective
cat and
trying
mouse
to catch he's
game.
trying to
Yeah.
catch the killer. Um I
For
thought it was
sure.
a very unique assassin movie though
Well,
in that
I
way.
totally agree, and I like it. To your point, I was sort of expecting it to be more like that movie that Fincher did. Was it The Killer or whatever? Did you watch that?
I did. I watched it when it first came out though, so I don't really remember it that
I
well.
didn't really like it. I didn't think it was that good.
Yeah, for a Fincher movie, I was definitely disappointed.
But I was expecting this to be more like that, which is like sort of a hit gone wrong, and then being like on the run or whatever from
Hmm.
either the people that paid you or whatever. But no, I mean this is not that at all. It's more like someone's hired. You're seeing the two perspectives of
Yeah,
an assassin and then the people who are trying to catch him who are kind of tipped off that this is going to happen, and you're seeing those two stories in parallel tracks. And he's definitely like a cool like assassin character who,
hmm
you know, can do all these crazy like moves and like fuck
his
people up
betting,
easily
he's
and yeah,
betting
like
married women, and
yeah. But he's also just like he's very casually just like, changing cars and changing appearance, and he's very
that's the cool
handy.
thing about him too. Though is he's overly confident. I think so. He gets tipped off that this detective is working for I think it's like the French government looking
Yeah.
for him, and they have all these resources,
And they
and
know who he is at this point basically.
he knows that they're looking for him, and there's a moment when he could leave and go back to Italy, I think, or something,
Yeah.
or continue on with his job, and he decides, I think, because of his who he is as a character, he's super cocky. He's like, okay, I can still do this.
That's right. Yeah. No, it is, and it's really cool. And yeah, my biggest takeaway was just sort of how unexpected it was that it just like moved like so quickly in terms of you could tell that it's from a book with a lot of plot points because
Yeah,
they're like, we got to get these all in. like,
yeah.
it's just things that move along like very quickly where you're like, oh wow, okay, we're already going there. Like it just keeps moving along at that pace, like lightning quick, but still dense, still a lot to it. And there's, you get some of that the old boys network with the spy stuff. Like I don't know. Anytime you get into that spy world, that's like the real dark underbelly of it, and the double crossing and the politicking, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, like that level of element. I'm always interested in it. It always also makes me like, you're like, boy, how much of this stuff like has been going on in history is like still going on because it's really like just unsettling, like
Yeah.
that people do all this shit. But
I think a cool aspect of that too is like the time period that it takes place in. There's
yeah,
like no technology, so like their way of the detective's way of like tracking this guy down is like, all right, we're gonna send out all these bike carriers, not tell them what they're doing, but we're gonna be like, okay, go collect all these notes of like every person who's stayed
that's
at
true.
every hotel from from
Yeah,
Denmark. I was like, dude, this sounds like hell. Like, why would you want to
yeah.
be? Like,
That's true. Like the tactics that one has to employ to like actually be a like super high level detective or whatever in that era is insane. And yeah, the
yeah,
the legwork that I referred to in the
yeah.
brick piece is like, yeah, it's just nuts. And I mean, like
Mhm.
the big part of it is like, oh, we need a percolator. I mean, you can just tell like every time they show the two main guys that are leading the investigation, they just look tired. They look like they've been awake for days.
Yeah.
Like the amount of work that goes into this is nuts. And ultimately,
And it's boring detective work too. It's
yeah,
like they're just rifling through papers
crunch
and
numbers. Yeah.
yeah. It's not an action heavy movie, but I didn't find it boring, you know.
No, me neither. Not at all. I mean, it's really cool. I would probably like. I haven't logged it yet, but my immediate rating would probably be a 4 star.
Yeah. There are some cool action scenes though, like towards the beginning of the movie. I loved
Yeah.
the whole this was just like a very short section of the movie, but when the Jackal, the hitman, is talking to the guys who are hiring him to do this job,
Right.
they're like, "We can't afford what you're asking." He asks for like, I don't know, some crazy amount of money, and he's like, "Well, just get your network of people to rob a bunch of banks." And then there's
Yeah.
just this montage of them robbing banks
Yeah.
and
So
like
they can pay this dude.
Yeah, it's like the town. They're like taking down like armored trucks and stuff. I like love that part.
No, it is cool, and it's just like I love the whole like sloppiness to it all because yeah, like the main villain or whatever, the assassin dude is like super cool. Like he's very casual about everything he does. Um, but everything that happens is very sloppy. Like every like crime sequence, every attempt at doing something never
Mhm.
goes as planned. And that's one of the things about this character is he's able to just keep adjusting on the fly, and that's like what's like cool about him.
Mhm.
Um, but is inevitably foiled by the
Yeah.
detective character.
I do also like the part of the movie like how it I feel like at the beginning of the movie you're kind of like rooting for him, but by the end of it you're like, wait, he's killed a couple like innocent people and you're like, okay, this guy is actually a dick. Like I don't want the Jackal to succeed in his like mission or whatever.
Well, yeah, it is weird because that's. I'm really glad you brought it up because I did want to talk about that. The movie does a really good job of making you feel like you don't really like the Jackal character, but you do sort of want him to complete his quest, even though it's
Yeah.
horrible. I think it's because you go on this whole journey with him, and it's like so long with so many steps and so many obstacles along the way that, at least for me, even though I'm like, I don't really want this guy to be assassinated. Now I know nothing about him, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe there's good reasons for him to be assassinated, but like I don't want something horrible to happen to a character, but it's like
Yeah.
I've been on this journey with this damn dude forever, and it's like almost gone off the rails however many times. I just kind of want to see him get this done at this point. But then
Yeah.
you're like brought back to it and be like, oh no, a good thing happened. The day was saved.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't even see the detective or any of the like good characters until I don't know, 40 minutes into the movie or something probably.
Right.
I'm just guessing, I don't know, but
No, it is a while. Yeah. But it is like it's a really cool way of doing that type of story. And
yeah.
I mean that I think I read that it was a book that came out in like 71 or 72 and then they already did a movie in like 73.
Hmm.
Obviously there's a series happening right now, but there's multiple adaptations including one with I think Bruce
Bruce
Willis and
Willis, yeah.
also our favorite guy Richard Gere.
Yeah.
Um
I haven't seen any of these other iterations. I
the
kind
one
of
that
want to
one's
watch
just
the Bruce Willis one
yeah.
now, but
It's just called The Jackal.
yeah.
And I had a DVD of it and I never watched it all the way through.
That good, huh?
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. You can't blame the movie for my misgivings.
Yeah.
I
I
would
will say,
totally give it a shot. I don't know.
did you know that Arrow Video put a Blu-ray out of that though? This
No, I didn't
the
know
one
that.
we're talking about, the
Day of the
70s
Jackal.
one.
No.
But apparently it's like hard to find now. I looked at it on eBay and it sells for like $50 or something for like a standard Blu-ray. And there's not many copies on there, so
Oh
if you
boy.
want the Arrow Video, like hop on it on eBay, I guess. But
Well, and you're keying in on my dysfunction because I probably would have been like, yeah, I'm okay not to buy this. But then as soon as you said it was, hardly available, I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I need it.
yeah. Dude, yeah, FOMO is a bitch.
Yeah. I don't know. The exclusivity thing. I mean, the social network had it right. It's just like
Yeah.
that's
I
everything.
want to be the one person I know that owns a cool Blu-ray of
I know.
Day of the
Even
Jackal.
even though that like no one thinks it's cool. Like no one that would come over to my house would be like, "Oh wow, you
Yeah.
have that on Blu-ray?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's tough, but so
I
yeah.
almost ordered it, and that's like way overpriced for what it is, I guess. But
Well, it's good if you can fight the compulsion, and I usually am too. I normally won't go crazy. I mean, I'll look stuff up that I want to buy, and if it's like not normal price, I'm like, hell no.
I am kicking myself for it a little bit though, because the way that I found out about that movie was like years ago. I was in Barnes and Noble looking at the arrows, and I saw it, and it was like regular price or whatever. And I was like, this looks really cool, but I like want to watch it before I decide if I want to buy it or not. And now it's like hard to find. So
Yeah, well, it's a lesson to you, Keith.
yeah,
That
buy
you
when
need
you
to just
see it.
yeah, like I have no idea if Miracle Mile will end up being my Day of the Jackal. I suspect not. But I mean that I could have let this go And
Hmm.
then, years from now, I'll be like, man, I really wish I had Miracle Mile. Oh, Kino did that one with the little cover art on the slipcover that I was interested in. And then I go to look for it, no longer available, $50 on eBay,
Out
and I'd
of
be
print.
kicking myself.
Out of print.
So it's a lesson that if you see something that you think looks cool, just buy it.
Yeah.
So
I'll
that
start
was
doing that.
Day of the Jackal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I appreciate you assigning that to me because I don't know when I would have gotten that in my life otherwise. But I had assigned you, which I actually brought my little copy upstairs too for this, the Peter Bogdanovich, which is a director that I like. Yes, you did you mine is in shrink wrap, but I have seen it. It was not a blind buy. I watched it I think on Criterion Channel at one point because I think they had a Peter Bogdanovich section. Of course, he directed Paper Moon and one of my favorite movies, The Last Picture Show. But this was early in his career. I think that he was, he was part of like the Roger Corman crew, which if you don't know, that was a guy that made a bunch of like B movies. But like a lot of like young directors like kind of came out of his crew because it was an opportunity for them to make movies. So like Jonathan Demme, I think was another one. But this was sort of his, I think, debut feature that was like a little grindhousey and a little bit like, you know, wading into the waters of starting his directorial career. So I was interested. I kind of thought you would like this. It also a drive-in theater was um, in the mix.
Hmm.
So like you said earlier,
Yeah.
as soon
I
as that's
didn't
one of the
know
settings,
when I bought it, I didn't know. I don't think you told me that it took place in a drive-in
no,
theater, did you? Or
I
not?
don't know.
I mean, it's really just like the last 20 minutes or
True,
something,
true. Yeah.
but still,
I,
yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned it. I know I know at least in my head for last episode when I was doing closed circuit, I was like, okay, well this is sort of what I think is kind of grindhousey and is in a movie theater and Targets might be a good companion piece with that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how much that's actually true, but what were your thoughts?
I really liked it. I thought like I was trying to or I wanted to do some research, but I just didn't. I was being lazy about it.
I understand.
But what how many like just random people were going on rampages back when
I
this was made? Like
It does seem like it was an angry time in America.
was
Yeah,
this actually happening a lot where people were just going on shooting rampages? Because
well, I do think that this was inspired by real life events, not the actual like
okay.
drive-in piece of it, but you know,
Yeah.
uh, you're forcing me to look at the
It came
back
out
of
in
the movie now.
1968 is when it came out.
Yeah.
Um,
So this would probably be actually good for us to research a little bit before we get to the show. So that when you ask me questions like that about American history, I'm like, Here's the thing, Keith.
well, we don't have to know. Basically, my thought on that was just like for a time period when I was a kid, I feel like we didn't really hear about shootings like random shootings like that until things like Columbine happened and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I was gonna say it felt like maybe it was a little bit of ahead of its time, but I don't know. Maybe people were going on random shooting rampages back then.
Well, and this was also around the new Hollywood, like the kickoff of like violence even being like in more mainstream movies in a different way than it had been before.
Hmm.
Um, so this is kind of a turn. This is around like a turning point when that stuff started being in movies more.
Yeah.
Uh,
I read somewhere that was kind of like so Boris Karloff he like plays a version of himself. His character's name is Byron Orlock, which is kind of cool, like a nod to
okay.
Nosferatu or something maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um,
I don't know.
but
Is it?
s- I mean I would think so. Orlock, Count Orlock.
Yeah. Could be.
Um, but somewhere people were saying that like that was like his motivation for leaving Hollywood in the movie was like, oh, like all this violent stuff is starting to happen and like I don't
Yeah.
want to be a part of it. But I didn't really catch that when I watched the movie, I guess. I don't know, maybe I missed a few lines here and there, but
Did you watch it with subtitles?
I think I did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched it with subtitles. Yeah.
Let me let you in on a little fact about me, Keith. When you start asking me about like what's happened in the world, the only things from history that I know about is if they made a movie about it.
Okay, I will not hit you with any more Barbara Walters questions.
At least let me research it first.
Okay.
I mean, I know
Well,
there's been random like, you know what I mean? They're like, well, obviously there was like the DC sniper. Now,
yeah,
not before this, but like,
yeah. I
there's. I
apologize.
think
I
there's.
wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I was just trying to figure out, was this actually happening in real life, or was it, or is the movie just like ahead of its time, kind of like uh, peeping into the crystal ball, if you will, of like, oh, is this
Yeah,
what America is going to become? You know, just people for no apparent reason, just deciding one day, I'm just going to go on a shooting rampage, because that's what I got from the Bobby character is he
yeah,
showed no signs up until just doing it. He just decided one day, I live this normal middle class life, and I'm just gonna go on a rampage because I feel like it.
yeah, yeah. No, I really couldn't tell you. I guess my gut was that this was inspired on by like some sort of like real account, but it's been a little while since I watched it, but I just remember like going into this being like, oh, I know Peter Bogdanovich as this guy who's kind of directed some classic 70s films, and it's like, oh, this is a really cool like sort of intro to him because it's
Yeah,
definitely like not as elevated as probably some of the topics he would like go after later. It's more like, you know, straight what you see is what you get
yeah,
type movie, and there is that like sort of more grindhouse B level element to it, which is it's kind of fun to see these guys that become these more established directors like working in those spaces like early in their career. So that's what I like about it.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I liked about it. I like the
Oh,
structure of it. Like, I
yeah,
like how it's kind of like we were talking about with Day of the Jackal. It's kind of like a 50-50 movie. Like, there's not really one main character.
that's true.
It's not Boris Karloff. It's Boris Karloff and this other guy, Tim O'Kelly, I think is his name. Um, and it's cool because like the two characters don't really cross paths until like the very end of the movie, really.
Right, right.
The guy Bobby who goes on this rampage, he kind of sees Boris Karloff's character in the beginning. I think he's like looking through the sight of a gun or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I like that aspect of it, how it's like you're kind of following those two paths until they cross. And when they cross, it's really cool. Like I said, yeah, like being in, the drive-in movie theater setting. I love that setting.
Absolutely.
Um, and I feel like, yeah, you probably could read into Byron Orlock's character, and like maybe they're making like a comment on society, like you said, like getting more violent or Hollywood getting more violent. That's kind of a cool angle of the movie.
Yeah.
But one cool thing that I did write down in my notes that I found the most interesting was a lot of the violence is like not really that over dramatized. Like there's not like big suspenseful music going on.
True.
Like so there's a scene where Bobby is he's on top of like this water tower or something, and he's just shooting people driving on a highway, and it's just it the
It's very
scene goes
cold,
on.
right?
It's very cold. Yeah, it goes
Yeah.
on for a very long time, and he shoots like a bunch of people, and it's like it's really sad. It's like a
Yeah.
messed up part of the movie. Like
Right.
this guy gets shot, and then his wife, or I don't know, some lady gets out of the passenger seat, and she's trying to help her husband or whatever, whoever it is that got shot, and then he shoots her dead too. It's like,
Yeah.
and there's like no dramatic music playing.
Right, right. It's very like sort of in your face, but it's also not overly graphic either. It's just sort of like it's cold is the best way I can think to describe it.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the whole thing with like when Bobby starts his rampage, he leaves this note. I should have wrote down what he says in the note, but the note's like pretty chilling. It's like he knows he's gonna get caught, but he's doing it anyways, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's grounded, but it's. I thought it was pretty messed up, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, it is messed up. That is true. I mean, there's just a sniper like randomly killing people, it ain't all rainbows and butterflies, that's for sure.
And
So,
the climax of the movie is great too. I don't know if we want to spoil it because I feel like this might be a movie that's like underseen,
okay.
but the ending where the two characters meet is like a very cool sequence.
Totally. Yeah, I'm with you. I actually haven't watched it in a while, and I need to rewatch it. Maybe this summer I will. Well, I guess before I get to this, rapid reaction rating.
I think I did lock this. I think I would probably give it like 4, 4.5,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was a 4 on it as well. Before we kind of wrap things up, I was just curious, like, do you ever get to the drive-in anymore? I can't remember if you and I have talked about this in the last several years. I mean, I think I only have like one drive-in experience over like the last 15 years. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the last time I went. My brother used to work at the drive-in in our hometown, so we
oh
used to
yeah.
go a lot, and he would
I
like
mean, I have a lot of memories there.
yeah. But I know there's one somewhere outside of Madison here where I live now, but I've
Yeah.
never gotten to it.
It's too bad. I that is one of the other pieces of movie lore that I really enjoy. Like I have a lot of great memories of going to the drive-in like as a youth, but even in high school and a little bit post high school, like it was just always like a very comfortable hang for me and like actually to the point, I mean this is, this won't be a surprise to you, but like to the point of like when you would go in high school and people would want to like go walk around and hang out. I'm like, "No, what are you guys talking about? Like we got to watch the movie." I think
Yeah.
like, I don't want to go over there and smoke cigarettes or whatever. We got a movie to watch here.
That's something that I didn't write down in my notes, but I thought was pretty cool was how there's like a jungle gym and like kids
Yeah.
playing and stuff before the movie. And I know our drive-in theater did not have that stuff, but I do remember going as a kid or even going when we were like in high school and there were just kids like running around playing like right up in front of the screen and all
Yeah.
that. Um, so yeah, it did make me wish that drive-in theaters were still a thing or more
Yeah.
prevalent at least.
Unfortunately, the only drive-in experience I have, at least in the last 10 years, is went to see Tenet at the drive-in, and it was like over COVID. Uh, wasn't a great experience. Like a huge line for concessions that like made me miss like 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh
And
yeah.
but I
You don't want to
also
miss 20 minutes of Tenet. You're going to be totally lost.
I also did. I kind of like don't really like Tenet. I don't think I'm not
I
really
don't
that into
either.
it. Yeah, I am. I know like there's some like film people that are like, they don't like Inception or they kind of just don't like the Nolan thing and they think he's overrated. But I really think a lot of his movies are super great and like as like high level as you can be in terms of making like big budget movies that are good. But I did not think Tenet was one of them.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably the only movie of his that I would say I actually just don't like.
Yeah. Okay, well, should we do our quick homework assignments and then get us out of here?
Yeah, sure. I think we babbled on enough about
Okay, so
Target.
why don't you go ahead and go first?
So, continuing on with the movie theater setting, since I'm doing Demons 2 as like my in shrink wrap or whatever, I want you to watch Demons because
Oh, hell yeah.
it's just a cool horror movie that takes place in a movie theater.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready. Yeah.
Super fun, just goofy Italian, lots of cool practical effects and some cool kills and stuff. Just a cool, weird Italian horror movie.
All right, listen. You had me at weird. Okay. And I'm going to assign to you, I don't really have any preamble or connective tissue for this other than when we first started talking about doing the show, we were just listing off movies to each other that we like, that if the other person had seen or not. And this is probably one of the ones that like if you came over to my house today and was like, "Hey, let's watch something that I haven't seen out of your collection." If you told me to go pick 5 movies, this would probably be in the 5. And I'd be like, "We got to watch this." Um, and of course, everyone can tell that I'm talking about the movie Night Moves, which is just this gross, sweaty detective movie from like the 70s with Gene Hackman in it. Um, well, I think it's the 70s. Maybe it's after that, actually. It might be the 80s. Let me see. It feels very 70s. Let's see. I have to know this though.
I'm
Night
excited
Moves.
because I've heard about this movie for a long time.
Yeah. Also,
So
the movie industry is involved in it loosely, not as much as Closed Circuit or Targets, but the movie industry is in it a little bit. Yeah, it's 1975. It of course was directed by Arthur Penn, who I think directed Bonnie and Clyde.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, and yes, so there's the Gene Hackman connection there. I'm trying to fact check myself real quick because I'm going off the top of my head for it, except everything that I'm Googling that's night moves is just Bob Seger all over the place. And I
Here, I'll
cannot
look it up.
get to this damn Wikipedia. It's like, yes, I know Bob Seger has a song,
Are you looking
Night
for the
Moves.
the year it came out? What are you looking
I
for?
was just trying to make sure that Arthur Penn did direct it, and he did direct Bonnie and Clyde. So no fact checking necessary, people. Matt had it, you know, it was all under control, and I didn't need to ramble on about Bob Seger being all over my iPhone. So Keith, I just think you need to watch this one. It's
Yeah.
just one of those. This is like in that list of movies that I just love to watch. Like it's on the list. And like I said, if you came over and said go pick 5 movies out of your basement and I'll pick one, this would be in the 5.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
So
excited.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun. You may be left being like, this has been built up too much because like that is one thing is like some of these movies, it's just like this is a cool lesser known movie. I don't think you're gonna walk away from it being like, what the hell? How have I not seen this until now? Like this is like better than Jaws. Like I don't think you're gonna feel that way, but like it's a cool lesser known movie. That's a good way to build it up.
Okay. Do you have like a cool physical copy of this, or is it on like Kino Lorber? This seems like a Kino Lorber title to me.
All right, so I'm pretty sure I have 2 copies of it downstairs.
I'm looking it up on eBay
I
right
think
now.
I have 2 copies of it. One is like the Warner, I think like the Warner Archives. I don't know if you ever buy their Blu-rays, but they do like very basic Blu-rays of like older movies.
Uh-huh.
I have a series
Dude,
of
I
theirs.
actually just
Yeah.
look at this Warner Archive I just got in.
Which I'm trying to read it. What is it? Oh, Showdown in Little Tokyo. Dolph Lundgren
Lundgren.
and Brandon Lee. Wow.
Yeah. I've never
Yeah,
seen that, but it looked cool. So
I have a bunch of Warner Archive. I mean, they're kind of like non slipcover Kino, which is like very
Yeah.
bare bones, but like they've put out movies that you're like, thankfully they put this out. You're just happy that it's out in a place you can get a copy of. So that's sort of the way I look at Warner Archive, and I also think I have another copy of it. So next episode, if I have 2 copies, I'll bring them both on screen to share. So yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit of a problem. I mean, there's some problems, but it's okay. I've also ended up with movies like, sometimes like Zach would have like a bunch of upgrades, so he'd like sell me like a box of movies. So sometimes I'd end up with doubles, and sometimes I've just bought other versions of things. And I kind of feel like Night Moves was a movie that I think I didn't own that I bought another copy of. It may have fallen into that camp. Yeah, I don't know. It's a challenge. Hopefully Lindsay's not listening to this part because she's just not happy with this type of behavior.
Well, I mean, there's much worse things I feel like you could be spending your money on than, buckets of Blu-rays. So
Yeah, that's true. But Lindsay would probably say things like, how about retirement? Like, maybe that's going to happen.
That's what
someday.
your 401k is for.
Yeah, well, I'm like, not at this rate. Not at the rate that I'm buying movies. I'm like, we're working for the rest of our lives. Okay, well, I think, Keith, do you have anything else to add this week?
No, I'm good, I think.
Well, then I think, by not popular demand, I'm going to not continue the sign off of Do It for Pizza and Go. But
oh man, I was hoping you would.
I don't know. I think I need to still work on a sign off. Maybe if you had cut that teaser together like I asked, then I would have kept it going. But
I'll get on it, boss.
I just think you just have that thing that if it's my idea and my pitch, you're like, oh yeah, we could do that, and then you just like,
oh, you mean like the whole show?
Okay, well, that's it for Return to VideoTech, and we'll see you next time.
Do it for pizza and go.